Hey, Sean, thanks for having me on the show. My name's William Dathan Holbert. Everybody in the whole world calls me Wild Bill, and we'll talk about that why they call me that later. From 2006 until 2010, I was a professional killer doing hit contracts and freelance killing work for profit. In 2010, I was arrested and given a 46-year sentence for quintuple homicide. That's five of them, and stuffed away in a dank Panamanian prison. I was extradited. I was arrested in a Nicaraguan war zone in 2010 and shipped back to Panama to face Panama justice. I had many misadventures in Panama justice before being handed down a 46-year sentence. I've been in prison for 13 years, and that's been a hell of an experience being in a Panamanian prison. I'm actually in the worst prison in Central America, most dangerous, and that's saying a lot. It's probably certainly the top five worst prisons in the Western Hemisphere, and I'd imagine in the top 10 worst. And when I say worst, I mean most violent and difficult and terrible conditions in the world. So that's interesting. And in this prison, I've been here for 13 years, and I had a life-changing experience in 2013, which we'll talk about later as well, and actually rose to become the prison's state-recognized chaplain. The government recognizes me as the prison's chaplain, given quite a bit of liberty and responsibility, an enormous amount of responsibility inside the prison. I have a ministry here that focuses on getting gang members out of gangs. So I lived a really terrible life on the outside until I was 30 years old. And even the first 3 or 4 years in prison, I wasn't a very good man at all. But I changed my life, from 2013, the last decade. I've been working to become a better person and actually working to help others get out of the gang lifestyle. I was never a gang member, but that's what the prisons are full of here. The median age in the Panamanian prison is about 23, so I'm an old guy. I'm 43, so I'm an old guy here. I'm like a grandpa here, and that's what I'm doing with my life.
Hey Bill, so thank you for telling us some of your wildest stories. How did all this start, man? How did a guy like you end up being classified as a cartel hitman and a serial killer? What was it like for you growing up? How did your parents meet? How were you at school? Can you go over your childhood years?
So we were an affluent family, still is an affluent family. I'm the black sheep, but I don't know. Like, I played American football, had good grades in high, went and got a small, a very minor degree in the university. I mean, a lot of good things happened to me in my life, but I tell you, just being honest with you, Sean, and your listeners, that always I was kind of a bad seed. I mean, I was always involved in like something just slightly illegal, selling stolen equipment, when I was 18 years old, the first real illegal business that I had, I got a tax stamp to sell cigarettes, and I would sell in North Carolina. They make all the cigarettes, for the whole world, really. I mean, like, most of the cigarettes you guys smoke over there are made in North Carolina, where I grew up, and for that reason they're very cheap. And you can buy them and smuggle them into other states inside the United States and sell them without tax stamps on them and make a lot of money. So I opened a business buying cigarettes in like a tractor trailer of cigarettes at a time, and then selling them to the Italian mafia in New York and New Jersey, without tax stamps. And they would, like a carton of cigarettes I could buy for like $3 or $4, and they would sell them for $20 up there, So they're making a lot of money, and I would double my money on that. So that's just an example of how the things I did, and like these were like all things that are slightly illegal, and make enormous amount of money. When I got divorced in 2004, my life kind of collapsed, and out of that, I ended up just electing a life of absolute crime, open crime. I was a fool. I want to be really clear about that. Anybody listening, everybody in life is looking for a shortcut. I was looking for a shortcut, and what a mistake. There is no shortcuts in life. Anything good is, I preach that in the messages that I give here in the jail. Anything good is worth working for, and I wanted it now, and I wanted it fast, and so I ended up becoming a fugitive in the United States for things I can't really talk about. And then went to Costa Rica. And from Costa Rica, I began a life of international crime. I certainly wasn't a killer. I never killed anybody before. I wasn't. I'd worked in several things that were violent. I'd been a bouncer in a bar. I'd been a debt collector. You know, the violence wasn't something I liked to fist fight back in those days. I was a big raw bones kid, weightlifter. I actually didn't learn martial arts until I went to prison. I learned that in prison, but I liked to bar fight a lot. I was good at it. And it was like a pastime for me, something I enjoyed. I enjoyed fighting, and you know, very rarely did I come out the loser in any of those fights. And so I mean, like, that sort of lifestyle for me was what I elected. It was a miserable lifestyle. I mean, like, just being honest with you, it was a completely terrible and miserable lifestyle. I don't look back on it with much nostalgia. It was a terrible time in my life. And so anyway, so I ended up in Costa Rica with some money that I'd skimmed from the United States, and looking to start a life of crime. Because if you're a fugitive, you can't just go get a job. And that's an excuse that I used then, but I mean, it's true. You can't just go get a job. You're as long as you're going to be a fugitive, you're married to crime, so to speak. And so that's how I got started. I mean, I want to be really clear. My family is like one of the best families. I was on my total disappointment, embarrassment to my family. And I ended up, from a good upbringing, being in Costa Rica at 26 years old, with about $300,000 in illegal cash, and looking to build an empire.
So what was your first introduction to violence? Was it a fight at school? Take us through it. How did that feel? I can't imagine you were just a naturally violent person as a kid. Were you someone who was bullied, or did anything happen that, you know, triggered you in some way?
No, I don't ever really remember. I think that everybody, to some degree, was bullied, but I don't remember it being like a huge part of my life. And I don't, like, maybe when I was really little or something. And I wasn't a terribly violent child either. I don't think that. But I think that also you have to understand, like, things are really different. Like, you guys are in the UK, or you are anyway, and American culture is a bit different. It's normal for young boys to fist fight and stuff. That's like a very almost encouraged by the society in which I grew up in the 80s and 90s in Western North Carolina, which is very southern, American southern. And so it wasn't odd that young boys would fist fight and stuff. That's a pretty normal thing. And then, of course, the sport that I played was American football, which is also a very violent sport. I mean, so violence, in a way, becomes just part of the culture of our situation there. But was I a terribly violent? Not more than any other normal red-blooded American boy from North Carolina in that time period. I think things have changed a lot in the last 20 years, 25 years, but back then, violence. I was a good kid. I mean, like, really, until I was about 16 or 17, I was a good kid. I think that maybe you're asking me something I've never even discussed on any show. I've done a lot of shows, I've never really discussed it before. One of the things I think that really changed me was I went from being the environment was very Christian, to when I got a driver's license, I became free, and like opened up to many things that probably too quickly, you know, sex with girls, booze, partying, things that it went from one day being totally repressed to the next day being totally free. And that's probably a bad thing in a way. I was very capacitated as a child. When I say capacitated, I mean I was very, like, I could drive a tractor when I was 11 years old. I was trusted to go hunting when I was 9 or 10 years old alone, you know. And so, what I mean by that is that farming children from Western North Carolina in the 1980s and 1990s were trusted with a lot of freedom and a lot of responsibility from a very young age, which I think is a very good thing. But I went from this is just my own thoughts about my own life, you know. I went from being very controlled to being not controlled at all. And so I immediately began to explore all of those things, you know. screwing all the girls and, drinking all the booze and going to all the parties and being fairly popular in school. And, certainly by the time I was in high school, there wasn't anything to do with bullies or anything like that. And also, I didn't like bullies either. I remember an instance from my childhood. I remember I was about 16, 15, maybe, adolescence. 15 or 16, and I remember I had a friend of mine named Daryl, and Daryl, who recently died, they told me he died from an overdose recently. I haven't spoken to him in 20 years, but somebody from back home let me know that he had died, he'd passed, and he was a very close friend of mine, good guy. And there was a big kid who was actually a few years younger than Daryl that was picking on him, and I remember the kid's name was Steve, and Steve would pick on Daryl, and I remember I had a letter jacket on, which is a jacket they give you for being a jock, an American football player. And so I handed my letter jacket to this girl that was standing there and defended my friend, and in a very violent way. And I didn't like bullies, And even when I would bar fight, when I was as a man, I would try to find the biggest and nastiest bastard I could find, one much bigger than me, if I could find one, and one who thought he was really special in order to fight with the best. And so I wasn't like a person who bullied others or was very bullied by anybody else, but I didn't like bullies very much at all. So I think the question that morphs out of this, and you haven't asked it, and I hope you can forgive me for going ahead and answering, how does a man get from a normal childhood, normal family, normal upbringing, and go from that, normal, good grades, well behaved in school, no problems, and become a hitman and a professional murderer in Panama? How does that happen? And I'll tell you just a short synopsis of my thoughts on that. I wanted to be a politician. I wanted to study political science, but be honest with you, didn't have the attention span to go and get the degree. I pulled a 2-year degree in agriculture from this place called Blue Ridge Community College. In that time period, also, I got married and began having children. I was very young. I was in my early 20s. And that relationship fell apart. At the same time, because I was so interested in politics, I began my own political party, which was almost like a militia. It was, to call it a militia would be an honest thing, which were militias in that time were not outlawed like they are now. And so I had literally my own armed militia as a 23, 24-year-old man, with 500 members in this small southern town. So I was really excited about that, and it was a right-wing militia, but it wasn't based on racism at all. We had African-American members as well. We had been accused once by the local NAACP of being a racist organization, but that never panned out. When we presented our African American members to the press, that kind of just evaporated. That charge of racism evaporated, thank God. But we were basically an anti-immigration platform. Is what we were taking. I was taking advantage of the anti-illegal immigration sentiment in the United States, which still exists. Anyway, I got divorced, and the judge in the case actually sentenced me to 2 weeks in prison, or in jail, in the local jail. 2 weeks in the local jail for insubordination, for contempt of court. And I think that I had been playing by all the rules, which that's probably not true. That's probably not true. I probably wasn't playing by all the rules, but I had been doing a damn good job of fronting, of playing by all the rules, by appearance at least. And when they sentenced me to 2 weeks in prison, I lost my is the best way I could tell you. I mean, I really almost lost my mind. I had aspirations of running for state as a state senator the next year, and they even reported it in the local news that I had been sentenced to it kind of evaporated my chances of being a local politician, at least in that time period. And I remember telling my lawyer, I said, I ain't serving that 2 week sentence. And he said, you got to do it on the weekends. I said, I ain't going, never. I'm never going to jail. I haven't done anything to just insulting some damn judge. I'm not, I mean, he could have given me $100 fine for that. He put me in jail for 2 weeks. And so I should, like, I want to be real clear to your listeners. I should have done the time. My God, oh my God, if I could go back in time and just do the time and continue on the same path I was on, I would have been okay. But I didn't. And I told my lawyer, his name was Bill Gardeau, that was his name. I said, Bill, I said, if they want to see a criminal, I'm going to show them the best damn criminal there is. That's what I said. I'll never forget saying that. And that's what I did. And just from that point, I took a complete right angled turn, or maybe a 180-degree turn, and became the best damn criminal that anybody had ever seen in that part of the world. So that's pretty much how, I made a really terrible decision based on impatience and an inability to deal with something I thought was unjust. And my God, man, I wish I could go back in time and just do the time. My life would have been a whole lot better, But I made the mistake. And that's one thing I came on your show here to talk to everybody about, and I hope you don't mind me running off just a hair. I came on your show here to talk to everybody about a couple of things, and one of them is that we have to be really careful about the decisions that we make. Because one bad decision, like the one I just talked about, leads to another bad decision, leads to another bad decision, leads to another bad decision, until you're way deep down in hell with no way to get back out. And that's the story of my life. So if you can take anything listening to this from my life, I want you to be really careful about the things that you do, the decisions that you make. I think it's hard for most people to understand the roles that firearms play in a normal Southern American man and even woman's lives. Firearms it's not strange that someone would go hunting. And I don't remember the first time I went. It's like asking somebody the first time you went swimming. I don't remember. Maybe people will remember, but I don't remember. I don't remember ever not going hunting. But I think that, and I'm stepping out just a second to go back to answer the rest of the question. I think that a lot of people who don't live in the United States think that, for them, guns are wow, something, it's terrible. But for us, it's just normal. It's normal, and I don't think that any of the firearm training that I had as a child, if you teach somebody responsibly how to use a firearm, those are not the kids that are going in and shooting up schools, by the way. School shootings and murders and things like that are not usually accomplished by people that went through the trouble of buying a gun in a real way. I mean, those are usually guns bought off the street or stolen from somebody or something. So I think that first thing that we need to understand is that nothing that I ever learned about hunting or anything ever came into play as a professional killer later. Second of all, my family was really normal. I don't talk about them too much, and I'll tell you why. I like to protect them. I had a really good mother and father who lived together in the house. We were religious, and not more religious than anybody else, or not less than anybody else. We went to church on Sundays, prayed before meals. Saturdays, most days, 5 evenings out of 7, everybody ate together around a big table, and in a semi-formal way, don't put your elbows on the table, that sort of thing. Typical American family. My childhood and upbringing don't have anything to do with. I couldn't imagine anybody having a better childhood than I did. I have 3 children who are grown who I don't want to talk about because they have their own lives, and I'm happy for them and love them, and they're doing very well. And I have a young son now who's 2 years old, and I would love for him to have the same childhood that I did, because it was a very nurturing and wholesome childhood. Had a great father. My father, he passed on in 2016, unfortunately. My mother's still alive. Even 3 of my 4 grandparents are still alive. I had an adopted older brother, and that was it, the 4 of us in the house. And so it was but my family was very united, with lots of uncles and cousins and my grandparents and everybody. It was a very, very close family. So it was a good family. It was a good upbringing, good wholesome upbringing. I knew right from wrong. My mistakes haven't really any influence or any reflection at all on my family. My family was like the best family in the world. I can't imagine a better family looking back, they just certainly, it's like hard for people to understand. They didn't produce the man that was the killer. My family and nothing, no environmental thing growing up produced that. What did produce it? And I know that you want to talk about these things later, but I think that what did produce it was just a series of terrible decisions, and what I concentrated on growing up. I concentrated on terribly negative things. I read books about villains and like real life villains and stuff, and I think it's important to understand that there are times when 90% of or maybe more of people who are in prison for violent crime had difficult upbringings. I'm not one of them. I had a really good upbringing, a really good life. I understand what that is, and I understand the importance of that in anybody's life as well, as I've tried my very best to provide that for my youngest son. I wasn't there for my children, my 3 oldest children, because I was in prison. I was a fugitive. I wasn't there for them. I was a terrible father. And I take that, all my fault. And despite the fact that I'm a terrible father, they turned out great, all 3 of them. So God bless them. The good childhood that I had, I didn't provide that for my 3 oldest children. I am doing so for my youngest son. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes and do so for my youngest son. So that's probably about as much of an answer as I can give about my upbringing and stuff like that.
What was the most memorable day you went hunting? Take us through that day. Because when I used to go to America as a teenager, my uncles would take me out into the desert and fire guns. A very powerful feeling.
Well, again, I think that the guns for you guys over there may be more. I don't think I felt anything. I don't think like, wow, I have a gun. I think you'd be a weird ass kid in the South if you grew up and you didn't have firearms. I had like a 30-30 lever action 30-30 with a scope on the gun rack in the back of my truck at school. We're talking about, in the mid 1990s. There was no school shootings in that Columbine. Shit hadn't happened yet, so. I was honest, but I don't know, man. I can't share the same experience with you about guns, because I think that it was just such a normal, and that's the thing. Like, I think audiences are really different, really geared differently. I don't like, hunting isn't a part of my life. It was like something I just mentioned in passing here. I think that you're going to be disappointed with me about it, because I don't remember. It's kind of a boring bunch of shit, isn't it? You go walking a long way into the woods in the cold, because you hunt during the winter, and you sit on your ass and freeze your ass to death waiting on some overgrown dog to come out and shoot it. It's not. And maybe there are people in the States listening to this that like hunting and but that's what it was for me anyway. It was just like it's not something. As soon as it became, I don't think I ever hunted again after I was out of my, when I left home. That was just something that we did, is trying to explain it to you. In a way you might understand. Like, it seemed, maybe it's an anomaly for you guys over there, but like, guns, wow, no, for us there was none of that shit. It would have been like weird. It'd be like in the States. In the States, you grow up and you have to have a car, right? You have to have a car, because if you don't have a car, you can't get anywhere. There's no public transportation. So everybody has a car. In Panama, nobody has a car. So when a kid works his ass off and gets a car, it's like, wow, he has a car. Holy shit. Well, in the States, a kid with a gun is like a normal thing. So it's not like, wow, I have a gun. It's not like that. So I don't know. I don't think that was a very defining part of my growing up, and certainly had nothing to do with, guns are normal. They're like normal where I grew up. I don't think that it's, you go to the South, everybody's armed. Everybody is armed. And so it's not something strange. It's also very little breaking and entering and shit like that either. It's very little gun violence, if you want the truth. I don't remember anybody ever getting killed and shot in the little town I grew up on ever. I'm sure it probably happened, but I don't remember ever hearing about it even, or never thought about actually shooting somebody, a human being, with a gun. It's not something that I would have ever even thought about. I don't know. I don't think that I can answer your question in a way that would satisfy your culture, because my culture is really different as far as that goes. I'll say this: I never felt superior or super powerful holding a firearm. Everybody else had one too. So it's like if you're in the military, you have a gun. If you grow up in the South, you have a gun.
Can you take us through your earliest arrests and what led up to them?
My earliest arrest was when I was arrested for quintuple homicide. I never had any early arrests. I never got in any trouble, ever. I was a criminal, but I was damn good at it, you know. So I never got arrested. I actually, man, I mean, they hunted me. I was on the America's Most Wanted and everything, and I had to leave the United States and never got popped. I mean, the FBI couldn't catch me. And I mean, like, this sounds like bragging, but do your research. I'm telling the truth. I disappeared one night into a snowstorm when there were helicopters after me. You know, I ain't your run-of-the-mill dip. And you know, again, your listeners are going to hear this, and I'm listening to me talk, and I would listen to me as like, oh, listen to this asshole brag. I'm just telling you the truth. I was very, very a good like secret agent type fellow, you know, very versatile. I always had 3 or 4 different identities, 3 or 4 different passports, an enormous amount of money on hand at any given time. I don't do anything poorly. I have a very high IQ, and you know, like I'm stoking my I'm stoking my own image right now, but I want to be really clear that when I look back on that time period, I don't remember anything fondly. It was a terrible time, and I was very unhappy. And so, and I want to get into this later, but you'd mentioned the word serial killer. I mean, underneath the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation's definition of a serial killer, killing more than one person with a cooling off period, I suppose I am, but I was more like a hitman, you know, a cartel killer than what would be thought of as a serial killer. I never enjoyed any of the criminality. It was just a means to an end. It was a means to, I mean, I know guys who are I know other professional killers personally, and a lot here in prison who enjoy hurting people. I never enjoyed hurting anybody. I never, you know, my thought process isn't that, oh boy, I get to inflict pain on somebody else. I'm actually a fairly sympathetic fellow. You know, I don't like to see little kids get hurt or things like that. I mean, that like watching other people in pain bothers me, even the way. And I don't want to get I'm not going to talk about the individual murders. That's not going to happen, because I think that I've done it before, but I think that it's disrespectful. But I never killed anybody before they knew it was going to happen. I mean, I'm not like, it doesn't make it better or anything, right? But I never inflicted pain on purpose to somebody else. Would you imagine telling somebody else, I'm going to kill you, and then watching them be in fear and then killing them? I don't have the stomach for that myself. And so I never did it that way. It was always like, you know, from behind the back when they weren't looking, didn't know it was coming, sort of thing. And so that doesn't make it any better. In a way, I'm a coward, but I want to be really clear. I mean, it was kind of cowardly. I'm not somebody. I don't want to torture people. I don't want to, you know, that sort of stuff. I don't know. And like, to going back to your original question, I'm expanding a little bit on an answer, but I want people that are listening to get a clear message of who is Wild Bill. And, you know, like some guy that likes to hurt people, that's not me. It never was me, never has been me, never will be me. And today I'm a very different man, as I hope we get the opportunity to talk about here later, what I'm doing today to pay back my debt to society. And so whenever you're ready to talk about that, but we'll go along and let you ask the questions. You're the boss, man.
How do you go from just being a person who's never killed anybody to adjusting your mindset so that you can carry that out? Is it a long process of adjustment? Is it a snap judgment? What are all the factors involved? Just trying to get into the psychology of how the mind can change over into that mode from a life of never having done that before.
Well, it doesn't change one day to the next, does it? And that's the thing. That's what I want your listeners to understand, that it's one set of mistakes after another set of mistakes after another set of mistakes. You don't just go wake up one day and be like, I'm going to kill people for a living. That doesn't happen that way. And for me, also, without talking about individual murders, which I don't think is right, the first time I ever killed anybody was in self-defense. a man was trying to kill me, and he was a cartel associate. And I killed him not wanting to. It was a complete and total accident. That murder was actually investigated by the authorities, and they agree that it was in self-defense, and I didn't get charged with that homicide either. But at the time when that occurred, I was already a fugitive, and I was working in a criminal enterprise, and I killed a cartel associate, and the cartel found out. I told them I had to tell them, and from that moment on, they owned me, you know. So it's not a situation about whether you want to or not. It's one set of mistakes after another set of mistakes after another set of mistakes until you find out one day you've come down so far that there's no way back, or at least you think there's no way back. There's always a way back. No matter how dirty anything gets, you can always clean it back up, including your soul. But it's going to take a lot of work. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of bad decisions to get to where I am now. And so it's taking me a lot of good decisions to get back. I talk about the law of the harvest in the preaching, in the program. I have a program here that I attend inmates at, and I talk about the law of the harvest. And this goes along with the question that you asked me: how does this happen? How did you get here? Well, it was I'm eating the fruits of a lot of bad decisions. It didn't, like I said, I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, it started off with, well, I'm going to sell contraband cigarettes. And then it started off, well, I'm going to sell stolen heavy equipment. And then it started off, well, I'm just going to be a full-time criminal and the hell with it. And then it started, well, I'm just going to leave the United States and find out what I can get involved with down there. And then it started, well, I'm going to be a captain of a smuggling boat, and I'll do that. That's what I did for a while. And on that boat, I ended up killing a man in self-defense. And then from there, it was, you're going to do what we say because that's how it is. And that's pretty much how it went down and down. And I did a lot of freelance work. Nothing I ever did, and I never killed anybody when it was like I had to. I absolutely had to. I could have always walked away. I could have always turned myself in, and I didn't do that. So, but I had painted myself into a corner, and not being being totally unwilling to do what was necessary to clean up my life. I ended up continuing to march further and deeper down into hell. And my thought process was that I'll never get out of this. Somebody will kill me. There's no retirement for professional killers. The retirement is when they put a bullet in the back of your head. And that's what I assumed would happen to me. Going to prison, at least in Panama, was never something I even considered happening. What an absurd thing. And it ended up happening in a very absurd way. But in a way, it was the best thing that ever happened to me at the same time, because it saved my life and gave me the opportunity to change. And so I'm not upset about going to prison. I'm thankful for it. Here, I certainly don't want to be in prison. Don't get me wrong. I want the hell out of prison. I'm fighting and scratching and clawing and kicking to try to get out right now. But legally, obviously. But while I'm here, I'm going to do the very best thing I can do to try to reverse the law of the harvest, meaning I sowed bad seeds and reaped bad fruits. Now I'm sowing nothing but good seeds, hoping that the reverse process will happen, and it is happening, little by little. It took a long time and a lot of work to become a professional killer, really, a lot of bad work. And so it's going to take a long time and a lot of work to become a good citizen. Maybe that'll happen for me one day.
Can you give us the full story and take as much time as you possibly can as to how you clicked up with the cartel, what your entry-level position was, just as much information as possible about, how you rose up the ladder and earned the trust of cartel figures?
I was in Costa Rica. I've been there for a while, about 6 months, maybe a little less, 5 months. And I took a trip down to Panama. I'd never been in Panama before, and a friend of mine went down there. He used to fish for cocaine. For white. He used to fish for white in the water. And when I say that, what does that mean? Well, he went down. He would go. He was a fisherman, but he would go down, and like a lot of times when the drug boats go north from Colombia, they have to run from the cops, and so they throw all the drugs overboard, and those drugs kind of just go like a shotgun. They go everywhere. And they're wrapped in these 25 kilogram condoms. It looks like a condom to me. It looks like a penis in a condom. That's what it looks like. A big, huge penis, obviously. And they throw them in the water. And sometimes you can pick them up, like often. So this guy, and in Costa Rica, white was $7,000 a kilo. So just do the math. 25 times 7,000 is, that's a lot of money. So he would go down and he'd pick them up and come back. And he said he was going to go hunting kilograms of white. And he said, would I like to visit Panama while I was there? And he said yes. And so I went to Panama, and in a bar, I describe it like this: if you are a heroin addict and they drop you off in a town, or a drug addict of any kind, and they drop you off in some town somewhere, in 15 minutes you know where to buy your drug. I don't know why it's that way, but that's the way it is. I'm not a drug addict, but I'm a criminal, and it works the same way. If you drop a criminal off in a town in 15 minutes, he knows who all the criminals were. So I met this guy who had an operation moving, like a coyote operation, moving human beings, Asian people primarily, completely, totally Asian people from China into the United States, primarily China, and smuggling them in. And he needed a boat driver. And that's a really long story, and it's just not worth getting into. But anyway, so I was excited about it. The job paid a whole lot, and my leg of the journey was to pick people up in Boca del Toro, Panama, on his boat, which was a large open-style ponga boat that held between 65 and 80 passengers, and drive them to, pilot them to just outside Jamaica. We would change over in international waters, change passengers over from one boat to another.
Financial anxiety, anyone? Worrying about it doesn't help? EarnIn does. EarnIn is an app that gives you access to your pay-as-you-work up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the EarnIn app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. If Jen wants a special night out or another bloody expensive handbag, I'm going to have to turn to EarnIn. Make EarnIn a part of your financial routine and join EarnIn's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about EarnIn, I think about financial stability and security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download EarnIn today, spelled EARNIN, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the EarnIn app, type in Sean Atwood under podcast. That's ShaunAtt Wood. When you sign up, it'll really help this show. That's Sean Atwood under podcast. EarnIn is a financial tech company, not a bank, subject to your available earnings, daily max, pay period, max, and location. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. Thank you for supporting our sponsor, EarnIn. Back to the podcast. The link is in the description box below this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Cheers.
But the Jamaican boys would pick them up, and I would come back. Now I'd make a little over $1,000 for each run, and I would do 3 a week. So I was making $3,000 or $4,000 a week, doing good. And that guy was hooked in with a loose, when I say cartel, it's not like you think of cartel, you think Pablo Escobar, right? No, it wasn't like that at all. It was more like a loose federation of people, of individual high-level criminals, high-level operatives. Like there was a drug trafficker, there was a guy who floated illegal financial money, who laundered money. There was a lawyer who did like illegal transactions. There's like 12 guys in this group, right? And these guys were all part of the group. And I was just an underling at the time when I went in. I was just a boat captain, nothing more. But when it occurred that I killed a man in self-defense, I ran from them for a long time. I was away from them for about almost a year before they found me again. And that is another story altogether. But when I went back to them, was forced back to them, I began accepting hit contracts and doing freelance killing on my own as well. I won't lie about that. I did a lot of fugitive hunting. I would hunt fugitives. And so I did like hit contracts, but I would also hunt other criminals who were hiding in Panama and kill them, consume their wealth. Not something I'm proud of, it's just what I did, and I'm answering the question. So how did I get my introduction? Just a happenstance. I stumbled on one of their high-level operatives who needed a man in my position who checked me out, and I checked out good and knew what I was doing. I was a good boat captain. I'd been a boat captain. I had a U.S. Coast Guard's license and everything, so So I was good for the job and did the job and I did a very good job. I'm very, very thorough in everything that I do, you know. I take any job or anything I do, I take it very seriously. And so in that respect, it was easy for me to gain their confidence.
What's the worst thing you ever saw in the human smuggling business?
You know, there's a lot of stories that happened to me. I only worked as a human trafficker for about 8 months, but the worst thing I ever saw was this, and you have to understand. Now, these are all Asian people who have paid money, or their families have paid money to be smuggled into the United States. Now, I don't know this, but I think that I remember the going rate being $8,000 to $10,000, very expensive. And so what happens is, instead of just taking them straight into California, that's like where, you know, it's a very difficult thing to do, because there's that's where they, you know, the Border Patrol looks for that sort of thing. And so they would bring them through the Panama Canal, take them up on the Caribbean, through the Caribbean up to Jamaica, and from Jamaica onward. And I don't actually know where they went from Jamaica. I would imagine Florida or Texas, or maybe Alabama, or something, you know, maybe like Mobile, Alabama, or something. One of those, or Louisiana, one of those 4 states, I'm certain. So, and one of the things that's really bad is that a lot of the times, even though that they are paying customers, they're treated like cattle. And even a more disturbing thing is often that the attractive women are raped with regularity, you know, by the people who handle them. I never raped anybody. That doesn't even sound like fun to me. I wouldn't want to rape any woman. Doesn't sound fun to me to f somebody that doesn't want me to f them. That doesn't sound very fun to me. Anyway, but one day there was this, I was counting heads. I had to, like, at the dock, you have to count how many people come in. I don't have to, like, give them their names or anything, but we have to have a head count to make sure we haven't lost anybody. And so, and then they give me like an invoice sheet to give to the Jamaicans that actually does have all their names on them. And so, but I mean, like, I can't pronounce their names, you know, because it's in Chinese, and it's like dang, 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 or I don't know, you know. I'm not trying to make fun. I'm being honest. I don't know how to say a word in Chinese. Anyway, so there was one day I remember there was this beautiful young woman. She may have weighed 100 pounds. She was about 5 foot tall, but she was stunningly attractive. And I thought to myself, she had this big smile, and I thought to myself, what a miracle that I mean, she looks intact. Like, you know, like the girls that come through that have been raped, you can tell they're like gun shy, you know. She looks intact. And I remember looking at her and smiling. She was just so beautiful, and I thought, my God, what a beautiful young woman. So we go on. I can't even say anything to her. I just kind of smiled, and she smiled at me, and then off we go. Now, to understand this it's not like some cruise ship. I mean, this is think about a big rowboat, a huge rowboat with 200 horsepower Yamahas on the back of it. I mean, that's what it is. It's like a 60-foot boat with just lots of people sitting on it. So across the open ocean we go a day and a half to get to Jamaica at about 13 knots. We arrive there. The Jamaicans come out in a very similar boat, almost exactly the same. They tie up beside us, and the people go over one at a time, and we count them as they go across. Then and if the numbers match, I give the invoice sheet to the Jamaicans, and they go away, and I have no idea what happens after that. I would imagine they go and they rest in Jamaica one day, and then they go on. So that particular day, the sea was had very high swells, about 15-foot swells. And the Caribbean isn't like the Atlantic. A 15-foot swell in the Atlantic is normal, but the Caribbean is different, you know, because it's kind of like a big lake. So a 15-foot swell is a very large, very large, rough sea for us there. And we tied the two boats up together, but when the sea's rough like that, you can't tie up close. You have to leave a lot of slack in the ropes, because if you don't, the two boats will capsize. When the swells go over, the one boat will capsize the other. Anyway, so and that makes them bounce back and forth, you know, and you've got bumpers there like inflatable bumpers in between the two boats, but the boats do bounce back and forth and do smash against one another, and so on and so forth. So about 2/3 of the way through, there was left about 1/3 of the passengers on my boat, and 2/3 were already on the Jamaicans' boat. And there's three Jamaican boys, and there's me and a helper on my boat. So there's 2 staff members on my boat and 3 staff members on the Jamaican boat. and it was the turn of the pretty girl, the attractive young woman, to step across. The helper, my helper, holds her by the hand. She stands on the gunwale of the boat, the railing of the boat, to step across into the other boat. And when she does, a little wave passed through, and she slipped and fell, and the two boats smashed together on her leg. And when I say they smashed together on her leg, they broke her leg to the point where the bone was sticking out. The big bone, not below the knee, above the knee. The big bone was sticking out of the skin. That's a real problem. So I was musing about what to do about it when the Jamaicans just grabbed a hold of her and snatched her off the boat into their boat. So I guess problem solved for me, but I was thinking, like, I don't know what to do about this problem because we're on the high seas and we're in the middle of this woman requires immediate medical attention and surgery if she's to live. But the Jamaican, and anyway, so we get everybody over on the other boat. I give the invoice sheets, and the boys say goodbye, and we start off. And I was thinking, what the hell? And I almost asked, what the hell are you going to do with that girl? And I want you to understand, this haunts me even today. I was thinking about her like, I don't know what to do because I'm a day and a half away from help, and I can't take her back with me because she'll die on the way. She'll bleed out because you can't have a bone sticking out of your skin for a day and a half. And I thought, well, maybe the Jamaicans, I don't know what they'll do with her. And then I saw them shoot her in the head and throw her overboard. And I thought to myself, it's both a terrible thing and a kindness that they did to her, because I don't know what, they can't take her to a hospital because, like, we're in the middle of a criminal activity, and they could have just thrown her overboard without shooting her, I guess. But at least they shot her before they threw her overboard, and that sounds like very callous on my part, and it is. But it is a kindness that they did, at least they shot her first. But I'll tell you that today, 17 years after that event, that bothers the shit out of me. I wish somehow I could have saved the little Chinese girl. She's maybe 24 years old, 20, I don't know. They're difficult for me to over 20 years old, way under 30 years old, beautiful, beautiful woman with a smile. And God, she was trying to make it to the States. Was obviously her or her family's, like her family will never even know what happened to her. And I don't even know what her name is, and she died. She I don't know. I don't even know what I think about it. It bothers me even today. But that's the worst thing I ever saw.
Can you tell us how you got the name Wild Bill?
Actually, it's funny, but I didn't actually get that name until just a couple of years before I got put in prison. It had nothing to do, like Wild Bill's a gunslinger. It had nothing to do with that sort of thing. It was like this. There was a man who owed me money. His name was also Bill, on the island, and on the island of Bocas, which is Columbus Island. It's the populated part, and I lived way out in the jungle. I had like a mansion house way out on an island called Aguacate, which means avocado. Anyway, man owed me about $35,000, and he couldn't pay it, so I went to his house, and he had shipped down from the United States an old Cessna with pontoons, and it was in pieces. The wing was off of it, the pontoons were off of it, and it was sitting there in the front yard. And it looked like shit. It didn't look that good, but as we went there, I went there with a couple of my goons, my local boys that worked with me for, to collect money, and I looked it over, and I saw that I wanted it. I wanted to have a seaplane. I thought that was fitting for a while for Bill. I was still Bill at this time, so we went inside and I talked to him, and he elected to give me the airplane for $15,000 of the debt, and it wasn't like he had a choice anyway. And so we came back the next day. I came back with an army of Indians, literally like an army of indigenous people that worked for me at the farm. I had this huge plantation farm. It was like really crazy the way that I lived, if you want the truth. And so I had this huge plantation farm right on the water, and a big mansion house and everything. And it was only boat access. You could only get to it by boat. You couldn't get to it by any other way. And I had like 2 yachts and a bunch of fast boats and stuff. But I thought, more than anything, I just wanted the plane to have it floating there, because it would look cool with the house, Like he even has his own plane. I really believed in my own bullshit shit back then, and but it was pretty cool actually. So we put it all together in the jungle, in the middle of the jungle, on a faraway island. We put it all together and we towed it back to my house really slowly. Towed it like 3 knots. It took like all day to get it back to my house. We got it to my house. So my best friend at the time was an ex-airplane mechanic in the Navy. So he came over and he said, "Hey, this thing's not in bad shape. It looks like shit, but it's not in bad shape actually, and we could put it back together really easy." And so I said, "What do you need to put it back together?" And he told me, I don't remember how much, not very much money. And so I gave it to him. I said, "Put it back together." And so he went through the engine, I don't know what all he did actually, but it took about 3 weeks. He worked on it for about 3 weeks there at my house, and he got it in perfect running order, perfect condition. So for another 3 weeks, it just sat there. I didn't know what to do with it. I needed somebody to teach me to fly it. And I myself had flown in a plane many, many times, a small Cessna. Growing up, I had a friend who had a pilot's license when we were 16, and we used to try to take girls to Alabama, or to like woo them, I mean, like, "Hey baby, you want to go for a ride in an airplane?" "Yes, of course." That's kind of cool thing for a chick, 16-year-old boys being able to do it. So he had a pilot's license when he was 16. We would rent an airplane for like $100 an hour flying time and fly anyway. So I knew a little bit about flying. I had never landed. I had taken off and flown and understood the navigation, understood how all the controls worked, but I didn't know how to fly them. So I was waiting on somebody to come and teach me how to fly the thing. And meanwhile, it just floated there at my dock, and it was like kind of cumbersome. You had to duck under the wing every time you wanted to walk up and down the dock. So there it sat. And so we had a party at my house, which is normal. It was normal back in those days, and there was like 80 people there. And so my friend Danny is in the party and starts talking with me. He's like, "I can't believe that you've had that plane there." He was from Texas. "I can't believe you had that plane there for 3 weeks, and you ain't even tried to fly yet. You're losing your balls." And so he's like 50, and at the time I was pretending to be a man that was 35, but I wasn't even 30 yet. I was only like 28. So I listened to him with me all night about it, giving me a hard time about it all night. And so at the end of the night, I walked down I got drunk. I was pretty well lit. I'd had, I don't know, 6 or 7 drinks and stuff about listening. So I walked down to the dock and took the keys out of the dock house. And everybody's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "To prove a point." Opened the door of the plane, primed the engine, slipped inside, fired her up, and off through the bay. Now I lived on a cove, on a long, quiet cove, very long, quiet cove. It was perfect. I mean, like the water's even the worst day, the water's perfectly flat. It's perfectly no waves, and it was ocean, but I mean, it was where a creek ran into the ocean, so it was like brackish water. It wasn't like that beautiful blue. It was like oceanfront, but it wasn't like that beautiful blue water. But the benefit of that was that it was extremely calm all the time, and the wind was low that night. And there were 2 mangrove islands about 2 miles out from where the dock was. My plan, in my drunken mind, was to fly out, bank left around the islands, come back and settle it easy into the water, and just to prove that I can fly. I'd never flown an airplane before, but I'm Wild Bill, or I was Bill. I wasn't Wild Bill yet. I was Bill. Where there's a Bill, there's a way. So I fly. I put the flaps down, maximum throttle, up in the air, drop the flaps, gained about 200 feet of altitude, bank left around the mangrove islands. Everything going really good. Everybody's now. I look back. Everybody's on the dock watching me, ready to watch me kill myself. The whole crowd. There's 80 people out there. 80 people out there watching. Go out, bank left around, come back. Everything going good. All right, so I've got about a mile's worth of approach, maybe a little bit more. So I drop the flaps, pull the throttle back down to about 25%, let the plane settle into the water. But something bad happened. It was like I didn't realize how much drag was going to be on those pontoons when they hit the water. I didn't really even think about it, but like there's like a lot of drag, like the water grabs the pontoons pretty hard, and I mean, you're not going that fast, like 45 knots. You know, it's not really moving that quickly, but when those pontoons hit, the nose of the plane almost nosed over in the water, and I pulled back on the yoke really hard. So what actually happened was it looked like a Wile E. Coyote type landing. It was like doing, doing. I mean, it was like a really, really ugly landing, but at the end, I saved it. Or it saved itself. I didn't even know what the hell I was doing really, but I pulled it out and saved it. So I floated back up to the dock and killed the engine and floated back up to the dock. Opened the door, and the boys grabbed the wing, pulled the plane over. I opened the door and stepped out, and everybody cheered. And it was like, wow, we can't believe the crazy bastard lived. And my friend Danny said, that's our Bill, that's our Wild Bill. And then that name just stuck. And Bocas and everywhere else for the rest of my life, I was Wild Bill, and began to think of myself as Wild Bill.
The day-to-day lifestyle of Wild Bill.
Back in the day, like between the years, let's say 2007 is when I really made it. You know, I had money and I'd become part of an active member, an active partner, is a better word, of the loose federation of criminals in which made up the cartel. I had a house on an island, and it was a big house. It was like 6,000 square feet, 600 meter square house. It had a little guest house. It had, it was really nice. It was off grid. It was on a cove on the Caribbean Ocean. It was on a cove that was in a bay. So, I mean, it was like really, really, really good anchorage if you had a boat, if you had a sailboat or a yacht, which I had both of those actually. And then I built a bar near the house on the same property, but on the other side. The property was huge. It was 84 hectares. It was like 200 something acres, very large property. It was like a plantation. It was a plantain and chocolate plantation. So I would get up every day about 5 o'clock. When in the morning, I had these two mango trees. But I mean, when I say mango trees, they were like a complete ecosystem, each one of them, because they were huge. They're like 300 years old. So, or I don't know how old they were. I mean, that's just an estimation. But I mean, they're like literally like 100 feet tall, and this huge plume of foliage, and each one had a rival family of howler monkeys in it that hated one another, like a warring faction. And one was on one side of the house and the other one was on the other side of the house, and they were really big. And so like every morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, the monkeys would start screaming. And when the first time you hear these monkeys, you think it's like a 500-pound gorilla, and you wouldn't think that sound could come out of a creature that weighs 6 or 7 pounds. But and so anyway, so in the morning at 5:30, when the sun starts to come, but right before the sun comes up, you hear that, and that was my wake up. I never had to have an alarm, because that was the wake up. And so when you're living off grid like that, it's very, very, you have to invest a little bit of your time every day in maintaining the electrical and water supply. The water supply was gained off of the roof of the house, just filled up tanks. That wasn't that big a deal actually, but the electric supply was a little different. You had to charge the batteries and keep the batteries up and pay attention. It took 15 or 20 minutes of your time every day. So, and that wasn't something I dealt with in the morning. I dealt with it in the evening, because I wanted the batteries full as we go into the night to run. So I'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? I'd check everything out, and normally I would walk down and turn the generator on. I had this huge Perkins diesel generator, really nice machine. Turn the generator on, let it run for an hour while I'd make coffee. Do my stuff, wait on the boys. Normal workers in Panama arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I couldn't stand having anybody around that early. I wanted them at 8. They love that too, because they still get off at the same time. They get off at the same time. They don't have to come in later. They can come in later. So I had them get up there like 8. So I had from like 6 o'clock in the morning until 8 to myself, because everybody else slept late that lived in the house. And so I'd get up in the morning, watch the news, turn the news on, had satellite TV, watch the news, drink coffee, make breakfast, plan out the day. And then I worked. I ran the farm. The farm was a very labor-intensive and supervisor-intensive job. Because it's like a huge thing. I had this like really nice Can-Am 4-wheeler I'd ride around on the farm and tell the boys what to do and what needed to be done here and there. Had cattle. like 40 acres of cattle, 40 hectares, excuse me, of cattle, about 30 hectares of plantains, and maybe 6 hectares of chocolate, cacao, and then the rest of it was just bush, And the bush was really cool too. It was up on a mountain, a little mountain. There's a little mountain in the back. So anyway, this is like what the property's like. You're asking me what I did. So I'd get up and I would take care of this property all day. And then I would find some excuse to go to Bocas normally 3 or 4 times a week to get away from the girlfriend. I go to Bocas, where I had another girlfriend, and stay there for 3 or 4 days during the week, party. I had a house on the island as well. And when I go to Bocas, I lived in a province called Bocas del Toro. But when you say I'm going to Bocas, that means you're going to the principal island, which is Columbus Island, Isla Colon. So you go to Isla Colon, and that's where all the shops are. That's where all the tourism stuff are. That's where all the bars are. That's where everything from there. I lived out in the jungle. When I say out in the jungle, I mean 15 miles by boat. So if you got a really fast boat, I live 30 minutes away out into the jungle. And so I would spend a lot of time partying on the island, and then eventually end up building my own bar and partying there just because I liked being in control. And not only that, there was this really cool group of weirdos that lived everywhere there. I say weirdos, but they were like wealthy, eccentric Americans that lived way out in the jungle like me. I was also an eccentric. Obviously I was a killer, but I was a very eccentric person and enjoyed being that far out. But I also enjoyed like being around the crowd some too. So I'd get up in the morning and usually put the farm in order, and then I would like if I was going to go party at Bocas, I would make some excuse with the live-in girlfriend who she liked being on the farm anyway. She liked being isolated and didn't like people very much, so that worked out well for her. I just leave her there, and then I would go to town and pick up another chick and that I used to see there and party all weekend. And then when that was over, I'd come back home. I had like a really good life that way. And so when I partied really hard too. I mean, like lots of booze and lots of bar fighting and lots of chicks. And anyway, I had that reputation in town. And so that was what my daily routine was. And then when I worked, I was very serious about like if I had a contract or if I had something, if I had a job like well, first of all, before I get into that, I also had like a hotel and a bar and several businesses that I owned in town as well. So I was busy, I stayed busy. I like being busy. I don't like being a lazy ass. And I partied hard, but I worked really hard too. It wasn't like I just partied all the time. I worked really hard to maintain all that stuff. But then when I'd have like a murder contract or a freelance job that I was doing, I would research it and like isolate myself. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to see anybody until the job was finished, because it was a lot of people think like I hated it when I had a contract. I hated it when I had a job I was going to do, because I was really stressed out. It stressed me out, the thought of killing someone. I wanted everything to go well. I didn't want everything. I don't know. It wasn't something that was like pleasant to me at all. It was very unpleasant. And I'll explain it like this. I'd like the opportunity to explain it. Let's say, Sean and your listeners, that I brought you a human piece of shit on a plate, and I present it before you. And then beside it, I have a bag that has 5 million pounds or $5 million, however you want, whatever currency you want, like a lot of money. And I say to you, if you'll eat this shit, I'll give you these $5 million, and then you'll be free for the rest of your life. You don't have to do anything else. I think most people listening, if they're honest with themselves, would eat shit for 5 million pounds or $5 million. I think they would. I would. If you brought me a piece of shit and told me I could eat it and have $5 million, I'd do it right. I'd eat it right now. Now hear me out. That doesn't mean that I like to eat shit, and it doesn't mean that you like to eat shit. It just means that we're willing to do that unpleasant thing to be financially free. And that's how I explain contract killing to you. It was like eating shit. I didn't want to do it, but it was just what had to be done in order to gain that financial freedom. It certainly wasn't something I was required to do. It was something that I did that was wrong, but I'm just explaining it how it was, So that was more or less how my life was back in those days, doing bad things and then spending a month partying afterwards, and a month like working really hard. I like to work. I like working in the Caribbean sun. I like being out in the jungle a lot. I also liked being on the island with a bunch of crazy bastards that live on the island too. And so I'll tell you, there's only two good times that I remember from that time, from the year 2004 until the year 2010. There was only like two really good stretches. But one of those 6-month stretches of like really good times was when I had the Jolly Roger Social Club. I built the Jolly Roger Social Club in 2008 and had it for 2 years. And let me explain it to you first. It was a bar that was built over the water. It was maybe 1,500 square feet on both levels. It was a 2-story bar. Downstairs in the center, it was all open on 3 sides. The back wall was paneled, wooden paneled, and it was completely built out of wood. It was built over the water on posts, so you could drive right up to the bar and tie the boat up because there's no road to it. You had to, It was built all out of pressure treated lumber. We put the posts in the ground and built the thing on top of it. I didn't build a bit of it. I didn't swing a hammer on it. I didn't drive a nail in it. But I oversaw the construction of it with my good friend, who was a building contractor, and he built it for me there. A guy named Danny. Anyway, he built the most beautiful bar I've ever seen in my life out of a lot of hardwoods that I had there on the property. We had them sawed.
Hey, do you know what that sound means? Ooh, that's something I've been hearing a lot lately. I can't help but love that. That's what I hear when I make another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. The Pokemon business I've recently started with someone is absolutely thriving thanks to Shopify. Shopify accepts all kinds of payments, and sometimes it's complex when you get on a platform, but their dashboard makes it completely simple. Covering all your sales channels from a shopfront-ready POS system to its all-in-one e-commerce platform, Shopify even gets you selling across social media marketplaces like Facebook, Insta, TikTok, and YouTube. Full of the industry-leading tools ready to ignite your growth, Shopify gives you complete control over your business and your brand without learning new skills in design or coding. And thanks to award-winning help and with an extensive business course library, Shopify is ready to support your success every step of the way. So when it comes to dealing with people all over the world, Shopify is absolutely enabling us to smash it with our Pokemon business. Before Shopify, our Pokemon card business was in the dark ages. It's time to get serious about selling and get Shopify today. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a £1 per month trial period at shopify.co.uk/Sean, SHAUN, all lowercase. Go to shopify.co.uk/Sean, SHAUN to take your business to the next level today. Shopify.co.uk/Sean. Link in description box below this video on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Back to the podcast.
And he built this horseshoe-shaped bar. You entered from the back, and it looked just like a horseshoe. And it was really narrow and long. And we had stools built and tables and stuff, all built out of hardwoods. Beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. And the floor was like decking. It was just like deck boards, So if you wanted to clean everything, you just threw soap on the laundry detergent on the floor and took a brush and scrubbed it clean. It was really easy to clean. Then threw water on it, and that was it. His and hers bathrooms to the left, the kitchen to the right in the back, and the rest of it was all open floor with tables and stuff. I built this game. Let's talk about first upstairs. There was a workroom. Half of the upstairs was a workroom or a storage area for storing food and stuff, or dry food, and a work area. And then there was 2 hotel rooms with air conditioning. So if you come in, like a lot of times, you come and get so drunk that you can't leave because you've got to drive a boat in the nighttime, and it's a very difficult thing to do, dangerous thing to do in the Caribbean. So a lot of people just fuck it, let me crash here, There's a bed upstairs at $40 and $50. I don't remember what. I think one was 40, and one had twin beds, and one had a king size bed. And it was nice. They were tiled. Nice rooms. Very nice. Danny did a good job building it. Beyond good job. Beautiful place. Light fixtures were uniquely made. Just a wonderful place all the way around. Anyway, so this place was a party. place from hell. It was only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was closed Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And the reason I built it was because there was this eccentric crowd of American expatriates, gringos, that lived in the area. There were maybe like 40 of us total. And we needed a place to party. And so, like, if you live way out in the jungle like that, you're eccentric. I mean, you know, some of them are hippies, some of them are fugitives, some of them are hiding from other things, but everybody's something quote unquote wrong with all of us, which makes for a really cool club, you know, makes a really cool, neato place. Anybody was welcome. Also, I put five mooring balls out. And if you don't know what that is, it's a thing to tie a sailboat or a small yacht up to in a protected area. And I'd rent them for, like, I don't know, not very much, $100 a month or something. And people come and tie up their boat there and stay there. And so we always had this, you know, group of scallywags, so to speak, pirates, hanging out there. And like on a Friday night, like, it was such a party place, like, and there was no rules or anything. I didn't have a bar, didn't have a license. It wasn't nothing. There was so far away, so far out. There was no government. I never saw a government official there, never, of any kind. Not just a policeman. I never saw any government official of any kind ever. Sometimes I'd see the Navy boys, the Panamanian Navy boys, chasing drug boats, but that's it. And like on a Friday night, like we'd crank the thing up on Friday night, and sometimes our parties would last 3 days, literally. Now, Sunday morning, I gave the words of wisdom. I had this Viking helmet that I made I had a Harley Davidson, and so I had this Viking helmet. I made it myself, actually. There's a famous picture of it somewhere online. You can find it, I'm sure. And I would give the words of wisdom. I'd write down some dirty poem or something, and people would literally come to hear the words of wisdom. I'd stand on a box like on a milk crate inside the horseshoe-shaped bar and give the words of wisdom, and I'd have my little quote-unquote church there. So we just had a lot of parties. I mean, like, there was nothing, like, I had white, as you call it, underneath the bar, Colombian Bam Bam under the bar. You want to run a zipper of Colombian Bam Bam, I don't know, let's say for like $25, like right there on the bar, but chop it out on the bar, a good one. And like, there was like a lot. I mean, there was no rules. Girls naked everywhere all the time. You know, there was some cute chicks come inside. We would invite them to take their clothes off and party with us. You know, so I mean, there's no rules of any kind, and it was just this wonderful place. And I had it for about 2 years, and it was like my sanctuary, you know, from the world. I would go there, and you know nothing's going to happen while you're there, because I mean, like, and that's the nice thing about having your own bar. You can be as big an ass or as big of a drunk or as big of a fuck up you want to be, because nobody can throw you out of your own bar. It was mine. And it had the reputation of being the most exclusive and insane club in Bocas. And so, like, it wasn't nothing on Friday night for us to have 60, 70 people in that tiny place, packed, and, you know, good music. And I had this game. I invented this game, right? So I cut a tree stump, a very hard Nispro tree stump. And if you don't know anything about Nispro is the only wood that won't float. It sinks like iron. It's so heavy. And I had it put over there, and I bought, like, I don't know, thousands and thousands of 16-penny nails and a 1-pound hammer. And so let's say there's 3 guys and me, the bar owner. I go set up 4 nails, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's a game. Everybody I just drive the nails in just until they're stuck, just until they've caught in the wood, and so it won't fall down. Everybody gets 1 lick with the 1-pound hammer. And the nail that's driven in the furthest is the one that wins, and the nail that's sticking up the most is the one that has to buy the round of drinks. I got very good at that game, as you can imagine. And so we would play that game over and over and over and over again, and it was a good way to get people buying drinks as well. But then sometimes it'd be rounds where 20 guys were playing that game. There'd be 20 nails. And so the guy that lost, that's like $100 round or more, way more than $100 round, the guy that loses. And so it was fun. And always a lot of beautiful girls there, a lot of crazy ass, beautiful tourist girls there. Some local girls, but it wasn't a local bar. It was an expat bar. It was mostly foreigners, and they were the local girls that were there were usually like girlfriends or wives of some of the boys that were there, some of the fellows that showed up. And so, but we had a really good time. There was only one in 2 years, one fight in that bar. And in that whole time period, and so it was a really fun place. It was a safe place, even though it was a crazy place. Nobody ever got hurt. there. I don't ever remember hearing anybody wrecking a boat on the way home. And like, if you was really drunk, I just wouldn't let you go home. Be like, no, man, I'm taking your keys. You got to step upstairs, and that's just it. I'll come give you your keys back tomorrow to the boat, so you can't go home. You just got to stay. But no, most people didn't want to leave. You know, we partied all day. We partied all night long until tomorrow, and wake up, hair of the dog, and go again. So it was a really fun place. I used to work with like the Panamanian version of the FBI or MI5. It's called the DIJ, DJ. That's what it's called, DJ. And so I used to work with the DJ. They would help me find like rich fugitives that, like, I mean, obviously corrupt officials within. I didn't work with the government. I worked with corrupt officials of the Panamanian version of the FBI or MI5. And so this guy that I used to work with, they helped me locate rich fugitives to kill and consume their wealth. This guy called me and said, hey, you're in deep shit. They put out an arrest warrant for you. A question warrant. It's not even an arrest warrant. It's like a warrant for a question, but I can't stand up to questioning. I'm a fugitive from the United States, you know. So I ran. And I went to Costa Rica. And he told me, he said, don't worry about it. Get out of here in 6 months. I'll fix this and come back. And I believed him because I was profitable for him. You know, he was making $100,000 a year off of helping me. So and then like $100,000 in Panama is a lot of money. And so especially for some Panamanian cop, you know. So I went to Costa Rica, and I was there for about 6 weeks in a little town that I knew there up in the mountains next to an active volcano, Turrialba. And in Turrialba, I was in this little cabin that I had there, and I turned the television on, and on the Costa Rican news was my face looking back at me, and it said El Salvaje Bill, which translates to Savage Bill or Wild Bill, the most looked after, the most besought sicario, like hitman in Central American history, believed to be responsible for hundreds of deaths. And I was like, oh my God. And the phone started ringing, my cell phone, brr, brr, you know, and I'm like, oh shit. So I answered it, and the first one's a neighbor, and he's like, did you see the news? I'm like, no. And I'm like, I just hung up, and I'm like, and I gotta get the fuck out of here, you know. So I was crammed my girlfriend in the car, a bag that had about $32,000 in it, a 38 special, a 38 caliber pistol, and like 2 changes of clothes, and left everything else. And I thought to myself, if I can get to Bluefields in Nicaragua, where I have some friends with who are embedded in the Nicaraguan military, I'll be okay. If I can just get there. And Bluefields was on the Caribbean coast and didn't have, at this time, it does now, but at this time it didn't have a road to the rest of it was like its own little country. It was like a little bitty Jamaica. And I deal very well with the Afro-Caribbean culture and the Afro-Caribbean people. I have always got along really well with them. So they're like Jamaicans. They speak Patois English. The whole Caribbean coast of Central America is like that, actually. People don't realize that. Like the whole Caribbean coast from Nicaragua down to Panama is inhabited entirely by like ex-Jamaicans. People who were at one time there, who were brought over in English slavery and then released. So I like trembling. Like I can't even begin to tell you, like how that, I can't even begin to tell you how that feels if you've never been through it. The whole world, like the country, they had roadblocks set up and everything looking for me. So I'm going down these dirt roads. I've got this is way before GPS or anything like that. So I've got a road map of Costa Rica, and I'm driving down these back roads trying to get to a boat, like a boat dock, in this little town called Puerto Viejo de Saripiqui. Puerto Viejo de Saripiqui is a town on a very large river that goes up and joins the river that becomes the border of Costa Rica and Nicaragua. And so I got there. I got to the river, and I got to a little cabin up on the river. But then I got captured by the Nicaraguan military in that place like 2 weeks later, and I was taken to Managua on a long boat ride, like a A lot of things happened along that way. It's like too much to even tell, but I mean, like it was a 2 week odyssey, and that at the end of it, finally getting captured. I was trying to make it into deep into Nicaragua and over to the Caribbean coast, and I just didn't get there. I got captured by the Nicaraguans in a Nicaraguan war zone because Nicaragua and Costa Rica were in a fight during that time. And so they took me to Managua, and remember that Nicaragua was aligned with the Soviet Union and the Russians, and like even their cars are Ladas, you know, they're not Western style cars, not Toyotas and shit like that. Their government still drives old Soviet, and they use AK-47s, they don't use M16s, they use AK-47s and stuff. They use Soviet equipment, and their interrogation tactics are Soviet interrogation tactics, which include locking you in a dark room for 3 or 4 days without food, bringing you out, beating the living shit out of you from your from your shoulders to your hips, where they can put a shirt on you and take pictures of you and say that there's nothing wrong with you. Well, that happened to me. The interrogation actually went like this. I had been crammed in, been drugged through the jungle for 3 days without any food or water. Water, yes. I actually drank water out of the river. Drugged through the jungle on a boat, finally making it to Managua. Not by land, by boat. In Managua, they crammed me into a dark cell, took me out of the cell. The guy says to me, "You're going to confess to these crimes that you did in Nicaragua." I'm like, "I've never been in Nicaragua. I never killed anybody in Nicaragua. What the hell are you talking about?" So he produces like things he wants me to sign, and one of them was a murder that happened in 1999. The first time I ever even left the United States was in 2003. I'm like, "What the fuck?" And so I told him, "Go fuck yourself. I'm not signing anything." And so then they bring in these little kids, these little cops with like baseball bats that have like foam wrapped around them, and they beat the shit out of you with them, you know. But like I said, they know what they're doing. They chain you on a post. They chain your hands above your head, and they beat you. You're like your rib cage and shit until you get so sore, you know. And every time they just barely touch you, it hurts. They put you up. They bring you back in 6 or 7 days and do it again and do it again and do it again. And so anyway, I don't know how long I was there. I think it wasn't very long. I think it was like only like a week, if you want the truth. But it seemed like a year. And when the Panamanians came and asked me, the Panamanians came and talked to me, and they said, voluntarily, you can go back and confront Panamanian justice. And he said, "I don't know what they're doing to you here, but I can only imagine. And in Panama, they're not going to do that to you. I mean, you're not going to get this. You're at least they're going to treat you like, you know, better than this." And I said, "Man, get me the fuck out of here. I'll go with you anywhere just to get out of here." So they strapped me into a plane and brought me back to the Republic of Panama.
What is the worst thing you've ever seen in prison?
You know, I've seen a lot of bad things. A lot of people killed, a lot of gun violence, a lot of... It's just everything here. There's a lot of things that are bad here. But one of the worst things I've ever seen here was this kid named Steven. This is one of the saddest stories, actually. Although the ending of it is a little positive anyway. There's a kid that came into the old David public prison in like maybe in 2014. And I say a kid, he was probably 30 years old, but he was slow. He wasn't like mentally retarded. He was just like, I think his IQ level was really low, you know? Like he could dress and feed himself, and he looked normal, and you spoke to him, he spoke back normally, but I don't know how to describe it. He was just slow. And he didn't have Down syndrome or anything like that, but he was slow. Let's just say that. And he had some problems. Like the cells there were communal, big communal cells that had like 40 people in them, and they would put Stephen in one cell, and he would begin screaming at 3 o'clock in the morning because he was afraid. And you know, and then the guys would like after a few days of that, they're sick of him, so they throw him out of the cell. And then they put him in another cell, and the same thing happens again, you know. And also because prison's a terrible place, people pick on him. And Stephen had a caregiver in the street, and he killed his caregiver with a rock, like smashed his caregiver. I don't know who it was. I don't know the story enough to tell you. But I also know that anybody that sat down with Stephen for 5 minutes knows that he's not mentally capable of being a standing trial. I mean, what kind of an idiot would send him to prison? You would send him to an asylum or something. Anyway, so the great Panamanian prison system's solution to this problem was to chain Stephen to the door of the clinic, which was inside the prison. It was an inside. You didn't get rained on or anything, but he was chained to an ankle, like an ankle chain, from his ankle to the door, and he had about 4 or 5 feet of chain, maybe 6 feet of chain, and that was Stephen's world. He 24 hours a day he was chained to the front of the clinic, and like a lot of bad things would happen to Stephen. As I said, people picked on him because he was different, slow, not normal, what you'd call normal, and so that's one thing. But then the guards there was this big fat guard named Nunez, big bald-headed fat guard, and the reason I know so much about this situation is because when I lived there, I had this really nice cell that was right in front of the clinic, and so I could see all that was going on. And Nunez's fat, worthless ass would come by every night and like, this is the conversation. Stephen had to defecate and urinate right there in front of the clinic because he didn't have anywhere else to shit or piss, did he? Because he's chained to the doors. So when he has to shit, what is he supposed to do? And so he just like humps up there like a dog and shits on the concrete, and then has to sleep beside the shit all night. So Nunez would come by at night and be like, "Why have you shit here by the door, you nasty bastard?" And then he would take his billy club, his stick, his baton, and beat the shit out of Stephen. And I remember, and the thing that made me so sick was not even that the guard was beating him, is that the other prisoners, that were watching were like cheering the guard on to beat the poor, retarded kid. It wasn't retarded, but I mean the slow kid. And I thought to myself many times in that cell, I wish there was some way that I could like kill all of these fucking people, all of them, because it was just the most sick and disgusting thing I've ever seen. So Stephen came in and he was almost normal when he came in, but now he starts to degenerate considerably, and he developed this extremely disgusting habit of masturbating, like, I don't know, 15 times a day. And the nurses who worked in the clinic were perfectly fine with a human being like being chained like a dog to the door, but when he started masturbating, it was just too much for their consciences. And so they asked that something be done with poor Stephen. And so they took him and they literally chained him to a post out underneath the rancho, which is like outside. And Stephen lived for about 6 months of his life chained to a post like a dog, and he began to literally act like a dog. He began to try to bite people and like try to grab people as they walked by and shit like that. And I remember one day I was walking by and he tried to bite me, and like he tried to bite my leg, and I stepped away, and one of the prisoners said to me, "Hey Bill, you gonna let him get away with that? Kick his ass." And I said to the guy, I said, "If I ever see anybody in my presence hit that kid, or if I know anybody hit that poor kid, I am going to beat the ever living shit out of them." And everybody was like, "What? Why?" I'm like, "Can you not find any in your heart? Can you not find any mercy for a?" I mean, he's he's not like us. I mean, he's a poor bastard chained to a post, man. And so, like, I would buy him, like, ice cream and stuff, even though he would, like, snatch it away from me and just eat it like Gollum, like, over in the corner eating, like Gollum eats a fish. He was, like, eating the ice cream, but maybe it gave him some kind of pleasure. And so I began a campaign there with the help of the head guard to get him out of there. And finally, I got a district attorney to come and talk to me, and the district attorney that was over his case came to talk to me, and he was like really snooty about it. He was like, "Wow, who are you to say who's mentally capable or not?" I'm like, "Listen, you stupid motherfucker." I mean, like that's what I told him. "Listen, you stupid motherfucker." I'm like, "Why don't you come back here and take a walk with me?" So we walked back and looked at Stephen there, like laying on the ground like a dog. And I'm like, does he look like mentally capable of standing trial? And so after like a bunch of petitions, they finally came and took him to what is called a manicomio, like a lunatic asylum or whatever. And I don't know if his stay in there was any better than it was in the prison, but it had to be better. It had to be better than the prison. So I mean, like, I watched this kid be tortured for a year, and I tried everywhere in the world to do something about it, and everybody thought I was crazy because I wanted to help him. Like, they just couldn't even believe that somebody, like, why would you want to help the crazy, And so, but the Panamanians are pretty cruel anyway. They're cruel to animals. They're cruel to each other. That's a pretty normal thing here. So, but I think that in my heart, that's the worst thing that I ever saw. That's even worse than like the murders and stuff. That's bad, but that's over with. It goes boom, boom, and it's done. But this guy was tortured for a year that way, and so that's the worst thing I ever saw in prison.
Earlier on, you mentioned getting caught by the Nicaraguan military. How did you get caught by the military, the Nicaraguan? Exactly what happened? Where were you? What happened? Was there a boat, did you say, before the torture? Could you give us the full story, please?
Without a doubt, that was one of the darkest periods of my life. Maybe, I guess there's no way around saying it was the worst. And maybe the reason I didn't speak much about it is because it's like painful to even remember. But here's what happened. I was hiding in a place called Trinidad. And the reason it was called Trinidad is because there are three rivers that come together to make the San Juan River. The San Juan River comes from one side. There was another Costa Rican river, I don't remember. And then, of course, the San Juan River continues on. So it's like a junction. It's like really a junction of two rivers to make a bigger river. And they called it Trinidad because there's like three rivers. There's three ways you can go. So I was hanging out there cool, and the Costa Rican side, on the Costa Rican side, it reached to my attention that the Costa Rican police were looking for me. And so I moved down the river to an island that was in the river, an actual island in the river, a fairly large one. And I had no idea that Costa Rica and Nicaragua were fighting, like not with guns, but like fighting politically over that piece of land. And I was there for a couple of days, and when I was there, the Nicaraguans decided they were because they have a military, and the Nicaraguans have a military. The Costa Ricans don't actually have a military; they have just a police force. And so the Nicaraguans invaded the island while I was there, and they just like hog-tied me up and carried me back to their military encampment. This story is really, really complicated, and to be perfectly honest with you, even today I don't understand it myself. I don't understand how some of the things happened, and I'll never know, I guess. Apparently somebody on the Costa Rican side had saw me, when I was buying gasoline for the generator in the little place where I was staying. And I talked to the Nicaraguan, the major of the Nicaraguan military, and made a deal with him. They literally hog-tied me with my hands behind my back and beat the shit out of me, and took me to talk to this guy. So they take me and they said, "You're a drug trafficker because in your house we found guns and money, like lots of money, like for them anyway, $32,000 in cash and a .38 special." And I said, "I'm not a drug trafficker. You didn't find any drugs." And being honest, I'm not a drug trafficker. And he said, "Well, how can you account for the $32,000? And I said, "I can't account for $32,000. I can account that I have $16,000 and that you have $16,000. And he blinked. And he said, "We've made a terrible mistake. We've arrested an innocent man." And he ordered everybody out of the room. And so I thought, well, I'm going to get away with it, I'm still going to get away because I wasn't that far from Bluefields where I was trying to get to, where I have real help. Anyway, so they take me loose, and I literally, on the table there, counted out the money. Like, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me. And so this guy, we're like laughing, and everything's okay. And he asked me, "What about your nose?" Because they broke my nose. So what about your bloody nose? I didn't break it, but it was bloody. "What about your nose?" And, and like gave him the shit beat out of you. And I said, "It's the damnedest thing. I was walking down my dock, and I fell down." And he said, "Well, as long as we understand each other." And so he said, so everything was cool, and they let me go, and they even gave me my pistol back. I stuck my pistol back in it was a revolver. I stuck my revolver back in my waistband. Now, it's important before we continue to understand a couple of things about the culture of Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Costa Rica, without a doubt, has the very best human rights record, political record of all Latin America, not just Central America, of all South America, every country. It's a first world nation, no doubt. I mean, 100%. Costa Rica is a first world nation. It's a good place to go. If anybody's listening, want to go travel, you want to, it's a safe, if you want to see the rainforest, it's a safe country to do that in. 100% safe. I mean, I would send my children there, no problem. Nicaragua's like the opposite. It's literally it's a holdover from the old Soviet Latin America. It's a holdover. You know, they use Soviet equipment. Literally use old pre-91 Soviet equipment still, and their government is set up in a Soviet style. I mean, Daniel Ortega is the president, is the dictator there, basically, like Maduro in Venezuela. It's the same shit, but worse. Nicaragua's even worse. Anyway, so apparently the Costa Ricans, I didn't know this, and now I'm hamming it up there with the Major Sanchez was his name. I'm hamming it up there, you know, having a drink in his office, smoking a cigarette. I just gave him $16,000, and I took $16,000. He handed me back my pistol. The Costa Ricans have asked Teletica, which is the Costa Rican police, have asked Teletica, which is the biggest news agency in Costa Rica, whether if they can loan them their helicopter, and the police have commandeered a Teletica news helicopter and are running up and down the river looking for me. I didn't know this. Nobody knew this. How could I know this? Anyway, so while I'm standing there, on the other side of the river is Costa Rica, and the river's only about a half a football pitch wide, half a football field long. So, 50 yards, let's say, long. Not very wide, And on the other bank, they begin to mass police looking over at us, and the Nicaraguans begin to act because they think that the war has come, because they're like, most of them are posturing in a warlike manner, and so nobody knew, and even I didn't know that it had anything to do with me. So the helicopter flies over the river, and the boys, the Nicaraguan boys, all raised their AK-47s ready to fire on it. And I just had this sinking feeling. I'm like, I just said to myself, that's for me. And a police officer stuck a bullhorn out the window, like an amplified bullhorn out the window, and said, "En tu posesión está el salvaje vil." In your possession is Wild Bill. And he continued in Spanish, saying that he's the most wanted criminal in all Central America, blah blah blah. So I turned to speak to the major and say, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. And when I did, somebody hit me in the back of the head with something. I imagine it was the stock of an AK-47, and I didn't know anything else for a long time. So there I woke up. When I woke up, everything was, my head hurt, and I was crammed into the corner of some little stall-like area, like where you did have a horse. And I remember that my girlfriend at the time was with me. The girl that I was living with was with me, and so she was crying, and I asked her immediately, "Did you get raped?" And she said, "No, they haven't done anything to me." She didn't have handcuffs on or anything. I didn't have handcuffs on either. I was tied with like baling twine, behind my back, my hands behind my back. And my feet were also tied. So we lay there for a long time, and I don't know, lieutenant or somebody, some underling of the major, stuck his head in the door, and just to see if we're there. And I'm like, "Hey, when are we getting out of here? What's going on?" And he's like, "There's a boat coming for you." So from Bluefields, where I wanted to go, a boat left, and it took 8 hours or so to get there. And then it got there, and we were going to go up the San Juan River until we get to Managua, which was a 72-hour journey. So when the boat got there, they cut you can see this footage. This footage is online, actually. They cut my feet and carried me and my girlfriend down and crammed us into a boat, and up the river we went. And they literally just set us in the front of the boat, and that was it. They didn't give us any food. They didn't give us any water. I reached over with my hand and got water out of the river to drink after about, the first 12 hours. So we went 3 days and nights without anything to eat and nowhere to sleep. I mean, they would stop at like an outpost. And when I say an outpost, like a shack. They would stop at a shack and change personnel, and the boat would continue on. And it literally took, I don't know, maybe it took 48 hours. Maybe it was 2 nights. There was at least 2 nights in there. And I remember, the towns got bigger as we got closer to Managua. And you get out on Lake Nicaragua, and then, and it's almost like an ocean. So, Lake Nicaragua is the biggest lake in Central America. It's a very large lake. So we get there, and they cram us into the back of a pickup truck and take us to like a debriefing place or something, like a place where they interrogate you. And the Americans came to see me. American Embassy came to see me. And there was a lady, and I don't know if they were playing good cop, bad cop or whatever, but I mean, the lady was really nice. The lady, she was a young woman. She's like 25 years old, and she's a beautiful woman, like beautiful 25-year-old woman. And this old CIA guy, or, he was definitely a spook of some kind. And so we're talking, and I told the CIA guy, so I want to go back to America, because I knew in my heart that if I get back in the United States, none of the shit that is against me would ever stick, because none of that evidence was collected by the FBI or anything. It was connected by a bunch of yahoos down here in Central America. That evidence would never be admissible in an American court. So I wanted to go back to the United States. And the CIA guy, I don't know if he's a CIA guy, but the spook, I'm just going to call him a spook. A spook is a slang term for a spy, American spy. I don't know if he was CIA. I mean, he'd have to be CIA. He would have to be CIA. He says, well, I'm going to leave him. We want to leave you here, and we want the Nicaraguans to kill you. That's what he said. And I said, well, why don't you go fuck yourself? And he was surprised, after 3 days and night of not eating, to see and being treated poorly, to see that sort of, I know he was, I could see it in his face. He was very surprised and angered to see that kind of resistance. And I said, I want to go back to this. Anyway, so the lady was really like abhorred. She was like horribly like surprised in an ugly way, in a bad way, surprised in an angry way that the Nicaraguans hadn't given us any food. So she went to like a Subway. There must be a Subway in Managua. She went to a Subway and brought back 2 sub sandwiches and Coca-Cola. And I never eat anything that was so good in my whole life. In my whole life, I've never eaten anything that tasted so good. So I ate that, and then they left, and they're like, there was no resolution of anything. They left, and then they crammed me into a dark room that didn't have a bathroom, and I was there for days. I don't know how long it was. I'll be honest with you. I say it was 2 weeks, but it could have been like 3 days. It could have been not very long, but when you're in that situation, and the thing I was worried most about is what the hell is going on with my girlfriend, I wrote about this extensively in my book, Long Live the King, Wild Bill. If you like this story and you want to know more about it, go pick that book up. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. You can pick it up in Great Britain or in the United States or Australia, anywhere. So I didn't know what to do. I was in this room, and so they I don't know how much time went by, but they pull me out and they take me to this guy, and this guy starts telling me that I'm going to sign this piece of paper that says that I'd killed all these people in Nicaragua, and they were like what they were going to do, I think, was just clean up all the unresolved homicides in Nicaragua with me. And I told him the same thing I told the American guy, that he could go f*** himself. I'm not signing anything. So in come like these little bit. I mean, all the Nicaraguans are tiny, and they all smoke. And everywhere you can smoke anywhere. You can smoke anywhere in Nicaragua. You can smoke in in the government building. You smoke anywhere. This was 2010 anyway. You could. So in come these 2 little Nicaraguan guys with these bats. And I'm handcuffed, just handcuffed. I don't have anything other than handcuffs on. So they tell me to stand up, and I stood up, and I said, I don't give. I never in a million years thought they were actually going to hit me. I'm an American citizen, And they said, you're going to sign this thing, you fucking gringo, or whatever. And so one of the guys hits me with the bat, and it pissed me off, and I took the bat away from him with my handcuffs and tried to hit him with it, And then like they call in this whole group of them, and like there's like 8 or 10 of them come, and they tackle me on the floor and chain my hands up over my head to this bar that they've got in this interrogation room. And and the guy comes over and spits in my face and tells me, because the Nicaraguans hate the fucking Americans. They hate them, because of like lots of bad blood in the past. And they're Russia's allies, not the Americans. And so and we're still playing in the Soviet era in Nicaragua. So they began to beat my rib cage and ample belly with these bats that have like foam wrapped around them, and it doesn't hurt at first. It really doesn't. But after they do it for about a fucking hour, it starts to hurt pretty damn bad, and you bruise it. But then they put a shirt on you and like take you out for like photographs. And we interrogated him. Here's a photo of him. He's not been beat up, and like you're all beat all to shit, because but they put a shirt on you. You can't see it. So that happened to me twice. They gave me the beating treatment twice. I don't know how long it was. I said it was 2 weeks, but it might have been 3 or 4 days. I don't know how long it was because I was in a dark room, in a room that was black with no. I remember I had to shit in the corner. Literally, I had to shit and piss in the corner of this room because there's nowhere else to do it. And there was just a spigot on the floor to like bathe yourself and wash yourself with. Just terrible, just like hell on earth. So finally, then the Panamanians came to see me. Omar Pinzon, who was the head of the DJ, which is like the, no, he was head of the, he was head of the DJ, which is like the Panamanian FBI. Come and he said, I got more or less of a pretty good idea of what they're doing to you here, and I can't promise you that they're going to treat you super good in Panama, but they're going to treat you a hell of a lot better than this. Nobody's going to beat you. So I'm like, fuck it, let's go to Panama. And so I signed a voluntary extradition to Panama, and away we went.
Can you take us through your first jail and prison?
Arrested and brought back, and I was brought back in a really I think I was brought back in a way which nobody else understands in the history of the Republic of Panama except for General Noriega. They brought me back on a plane, and I want to explain that they took me out of Nicaragua, and they brought me back on a plane. And while I was on they marched me in like 8 cops dressed in full riot gear with like, the goon squad. I call them the goon squad, and I still call them the goon squad. The ones that come down, they've got face masks on and all that weird shit, And they when I got on the plane, nobody said a word. Everything was all business. And when I got on the plane, they pulled the hood off of me. They had a hood on me. They pulled the hood off of me, and they're like, hey. And the guys start talking to me, the Panamanians, and they're like, Bill, you're famous. Would you sign? Would you? They unchained they had me chained like to a belt. They took the chain off my belt and asked me to sign autographs. And I'm like, what? And like, what? And they're like, yeah, make this out to my wife and signs. And I'm like, what? And the guys are like, here, you want something to eat? We brought chicken. And they're like cramming. They're like, here, they passed me a piece of fried chicken and like a thing to write. So I'm like, what the? And they're like, you don't know? And I'm like, no. And he's like, God, man, in Panama, you're so famous. Like they're everywhere. The police are all waiting on me. The news media is all waiting on us when you get back. I'm like, no way. And like, yeah. So the plane lands, and I'm like, I look like shit, physically. I look like shit. I haven't had a bath in 2 weeks. I had long hair, longer than in the photograph, in the video, but they cut it off with a knife. The guy like reached behind and cut the ponytail off, so my hair looked like some sort of deranged, I don't know what, some kind of a deranged. I look deranged. That's the right word, I think, and dirty. And so they marched me down off the airplane in the same clothes I've been wearing for 2 weeks, in front of the whole world. And the president, Ricardo Martinelli, who is now an associate of mine, but at that time, he's not the president anymore here, but during that time he was, and he's there with a news conference, and I look, and there's like every major news network in the world is represented. ABC, BBC, CBC, Telemetro, Telemundo, Teletica, every single news agency in the world, national CNN and Espanol, CNN, regular CNN, everybody's there, and I'm like, oh shit. So they march me up, and I'm listening, and the president starts to speak, and they have me like chained, and they're doing me the perp walk, And so the president says, we want to thank the Panamanian forces for capturing this monster. And I said, and so I didn't say anything, and he said, and we're going to make sure that these murderers get put away forever, blah blah blah. And I raised up like both of my hands, with my hands are cuffed, I raised them both. I'm like, wait a minute, boss, espérate, jefe. And like all the news cameras in the world literally turned to me. The monster is about to speak. And I said in Spanish, I said, well, it wasn't the Panamanians that captured me. The Panamanians let me escape. It was the Nicaraguans. And then there was like this long silence, and somebody started to laugh, and then everybody started to laugh, and so this girl, a woman, sticks a camera in my face. It sticks a microphone in my face, and she says, "Bill, have you got anything to say to the Panamanian people?" And I said, "Yeah, I just want to say thanks for the free plane ride. I'm going to La Jolla, I suppose, and I'll be there for a little while on vacation. So I'd appreciate it if you get my jacuzzi ready." That's what I said. La Jolla is the big prison here, by the way. It's like the most infamous prison. And everybody started laughing again, so they started asking me questions, and Martinelli's like getting red-faced. He's really pissed off now because I've stolen the show. It wasn't supposed to be about me. It was supposed to be about him. So he started screaming, "Get him out of here! Get him out of here!" So they marched me off, and even the guards that are walking with me are laughing. They're like, "Holy shit, this guy's a riot." So they marched me off. So from that day forward, like I had this love-hate relationship with the Panamanian press. They loved to listen to me, and they loved to put my shit on TV. So they take me to this Ancon Judicial Center, and they start questioning me. So they bring me in, and the district attorney is this little snake-eyed fat fucker named Angel Calderon. Angel Calderon. I don't know. Just to say it in English I don't even know how to say it in English. Anyway, so he says, like, "What do you want to tell us?" And I said, "Well, I'm guilty. I'm guilty." But I thought I knew that I had to confess to everything immediately to not be killed, because you can kill anybody in a Panamanian prison, and I knew this, and so I said, "I'm guilty, and I did it all, and I didn't have any help." And he's like, "But that can't be right. We obviously were investigating this, and we know some things that you had to have help with." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not ratting on anybody. I did it all." And so he hands me he said, "Well, here's your statement." And he hands me a 17-page statement that implicates 20 other people. And I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" He's like, "This is what you just said." I said, I'm in here 10 minutes and I said 17 pages of shit. And he's like, "Well," I was like, "Well, I need a translator because I can't even my Spanish skills are not, at that time, weren't like what they are now." And he's like, "No, just sign it." And I'm like, "Stick it up your ass, man. I'm not signing the fucking thing." And so they're very unhappy with me now. I'm a bad because I won't just sign their I didn't even say. So they take me back and they break me back, and they're like trying to break me. They keep me chained all night, day and night, day and night, day and night. Same shit in Nicaragua, just with a little window dressing, At least they are feeding me. Anyway, and so they bring me back, and so I said, "I ain't signing shit until I talk to my lawyer." And he starts to laugh. He says, "Well, tell me your lawyer's name and number, and I'll call him." And I said, "Right here, motherfucker." And what had happened is somebody had given me a name of a Panamanian lawyer who was like half American while I was in prison, just in passing. And I remembered the number, and it was like, I don't remember what it was, but it's like Panamanian numbers have 8 digits. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, "That can't be right." I'm like, "Well, call the motherfucker." And so they called him, and his name was Charlie Carrillo. So they called Charlie Carrillo, and Charlie Carrillo said, "Leave my client alone." I wasn't even his client, but he ain't stupid, is he? I'm famous as hell. So he comes running to get in front of the camera, and shit. So, but he did help me a lot, and got me sent to a normal prison while the investigation process moved forward. But I told Charlie, I've got to confess, because I need to send my ex-associates a confession in which doesn't implicate them, or they're going to send to kill me. And so he said, "Well, let's do a quick confession." And so he calls me back, and I said the same thing. "I did all this. It's my fault. Nobody helped me," and that was my confession. So the district attorney is really pissed off about this. So the district attorney is asked by the news media, "What the fuck is going on? Aren't you going to find the other people who are responsible?" And they're like, "No, Bill's crazy, and he killed all these people because he's crazy." And that was their official statement, that I'm not mentally well, and that's why I killed all those people. And I'm like, "You bunch of motherfuckers!" And the only reason they said that shit is because they don't know how to investigate, and they couldn't make me rat on my friends. And so anyway, so that came out, and then my lawyer refuted it. "No, he's not crazy. He's just not a rat. He's not an informant," and blah blah blah. But confessing like that saved my life. I'm still alive today. So that was my first little bit, and they finally took me to prison, which was another experience altogether.
Did the authorities try to get you to cooperate?
And the authorities tried to get me to cooperate, but not in the way they did in Nicaragua. They didn't try to beat me or anything. But here, one thing, I couldn't cooperate more than just confess. because if I did cooperate, there's no way I'd still be alive. So anybody can kill anybody in a Panamanian prison. So like the first thing I did, I confessed and then sent that confession immediately to all my friends, and so that they would see that, you know, Bill's taking it up the ass on his own. Because I'm sure there was even planned immediately. I'm sure it was being immediately planned. My demise, my assassination was been immediately planned. But I mean, there's very little chance that could have happened in that Ancon Judicial Center. Before I went to regular prison, I wanted to make sure that the powers that be, or my ex-partners, all had copies of my confession, so that they could feel comfortable. They did, and they're long gone from Panama now. Anyway, that was 13 years ago. So that's it. I mean, and the authorities did everything they could try to do to, but like here, it wouldn't. First of all, they didn't offer me a deal or anything, and even if they did, it wouldn't matter because I'd still have to say no. And I think it's good though. I mean, it was the right thing to do, to take it on the chin. I played the game and I lost, and what benefit to me would it be to put all my friends in jail? That doesn't make any sense. And so let it be. I'm good. I don't feel bad about it. It's over with. My life's really good now. It wasn't. I mean, it's really difficult, but it's good. And I'm happier now than I ever was as a killer. And so I've shed that old Bill, Leave that motherfucker back there in the back.
Hand on and walk us through more of your prison time.
Yeah, this is kind of a long answer, but sure. Well, I arrived in prison, like actual prison, from the Judicial Holding Center. Like, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the United States, you don't go to prison until you're convicted. There ain't no innocent people. There ain't no unconvicted people in prison. But here, the prisons are full of unconvicted people, and so just right away, you're mixed in with everybody. There's no like separation. There's some guy in here for like petty robbery next to some guy like me with 5 homicides, So I mean, like, there's no separation. It's a madhouse. There is some separation to some degree, and I'll explain that. I was taken to prison on the first or second week in August of 2010. And I arrived in a place called Pavilion 7. Now, there's a prison complex in Panama called La Joya, and it's 3 prisons. Now, back in those days, it was only 2 prisons. The third prison hadn't been constructed yet. It was in those days, it was La Joya and La Joyita. There are 2 prisons, and they held about 10,000 men. 5,000 apiece, something like that. So they took me to La Joyita, which was the newer prison, and to a place where like high-profile prisoners were held. It was like a really great place to go, but I didn't know that. And so like I was braced, I'm like, I've seen all the movies. You got to fight on your first day. You got to get ready. You got to be tough. And they take me down, march me down chained, hands, feet, march me down, turn me loose in this place, and there's just like 1 cop guarding and 1 cop in the guard tower, and that's it. And the cop guarding takes my chains off, and he's like, your cell is the one in the middle. There was only 6 cells, and my cell was number 3. So I walked down to number 3, and I put my stuff in the cell, and I noticed the cell doors were just open. And this guy, this tall, white-headed man, comes down and with a British accent says to me, "Hey, Bill, welcome to hell," and he throws something at me, or to me. He tosses me something. And I catch it out of the air, and it was an ice-cold bottle of Heineken beer. An ice-cold can of Heineken beer. And I'm like, what the f***? So I opened the beer, started drinking, and so he starts talking to me. His name was Leo Morgan. He recently has been released from prison, and who would become one of my very best friends in the world. He was a British gangster from Birmingham. He and himself should be one of your shows, but anyway, so this guy takes me under his wing. He taught me everything, taught me how to, he spent a couple of months with me teaching me what to expect in Panamanian prison as a foreigner. This jail cell was small, this cell block, was small. Like I said, I only had 6 cells, and there was only 11 people. The only one that had their own cell was me, because everybody was a little nervous about anybody. Everybody that was there, had been there for a long time, were a little bit nervous about sleeping with me because the news media had made such a monster out of me. Anyway, So, so I was there for like 6 months, and it was just like for prison, it was a paradise because like there were these. This is funny. There were two women who were sergeants, police sergeants, who would come down from up and like us for money. And I have this thing. I didn't pay for sex. I wouldn't pay for sex. And the girls came down, and they're beautiful girls. They really were. They're police officers. They're beautiful, really attractive. And so I was sitting in at this little desk that they had there, and my friend Leo was sitting. Leo Morgan sitting beside me, and he's like, "Oh shit, Bill." And I said, "What?" And he's like, "You want to get laid?" And I'm like, "Not particularly." Or are you talking? What are you talking about? What the hell do you mean? He's like, "No, no, look." And so these two girls come in, and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, they'll you for $100." And I'm like, "No, man, I'm not paying for sex." And so the girls come down, and I don't speak very good Spanish, but just a little bit, and he spoke perfect Spanish. And so they asked me, and I'm like, and Leo's like, Leo tells him, he says he's like a weird guy. He won't pay for sex. And the one girl says, "I don't care. I want to Wild Bill." And so they took me in to my cell, and one at a time actually, and I ended up fucking both of them there in prison. If that tells you anything about how we lived there, I mean, there was a refrigerator full of beer. I never saw it get searched the whole time I was there. We had this huge kitchen workout area. It was really nice. But then everything changed, and they brought in a new warden who wanted to use the facility as for what it was actually designed for, as like to house prisoners who were problematic. And they brought in a bunch of problematic prisoners, and when they brought those problematic prisoners in, brought in a lot of fights and a lot of like two separate warring factions, one on one side, one on the other side. We're in a tiny place. I mean, I can't stress how small this facility was. And so it was a real problem. And when I got transferred out of there, like 8 months later, because my case file moved to another end, the other end of the country, I was really happy. For like 3 days after I got transferred out of there was a shootout inside there, in which killed like 3 men. And so Leo also got transferred out of there. So we were lucky to get out of out of cell block 7. I got moved to David in the Chiriquí province of Panama. And this is a country province, and it was a country jail. In this country jail, things were really different. I immediately understood that things were different there. Everything was laid back. A little bit of money, the smallest bit of money, got you all kind of stuff. The warden was thoroughly corrupt. I mean, I was there like 3 weeks, and he invited me in to talk to him, and he asked me if I was a businessman, and I said, yes, I am a businessman, as a matter of fact. And so I began building a relationship there in prison with the authorities, one of corruption, and literally took over that prison completely, as the inmates elected me as their representative to the government, which isn't an elected position. And I organized territories inside for the various street gangs to sell drugs, and I was doing really well. Now, one of the things that I did that was really positive, and you can look at it any way you want to, but inside a Panamanian prison, there's lots of drugs and guns and murders, and the boys were killing each other. This is a facility that had about 1,100 prisoners in those days. It has more now. And so what I did is I called a meeting, literally like a 5-family meeting. Literally, what we created what we call a directiva, a meeting of directors. And I called the heads of all the gangs together and told them, I said, hey, look, if you guys keep killing each other, you're not making any money. You want to sell drugs, right? So you can't. We have searches and cops in here all the time. Why don't we make a peace agreement? You guys hate each other in the street, you kill each other in the street, but here inside the prison, no killing, no problem, no shit, and sell drugs. And we'll arrange territories to each person, so each person has a territory to sell drugs on the inside, and everybody will make money and we'll have a lot better time. And that actually worked, immediately. The entire time I was in charge of the David Public Prison, nobody killed anybody. The entire time, 7 years. And so the prison authorities loved me, and not only that, I put myself in between the prison authorities and the prisoners. There's photos of me online in an article I do with the Daily Mail, sitting on lots of money, and I had a lot of privileges other prisoners didn't have. I had lots of like sexual relationships with the girls who work in the office. I got conjugal visits every week. I mean, it wasn't like being in prison at all. I had the key to my cell, literally. I left my cell at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I came back about midnight after drinking booze with the guards at night, you know. So, I mean, prison there wasn't bad for me. Then they built a new prison called the Chiriqui Public Prison, and we moved to that prison. Everybody from that old jail, the old jail closed and actually burned. In the move, it burned to the ground. Can you believe that? Anyway, so we moved to the new prison, and in the new prison, I just was, you know, the same thing as always. I just put myself back in charge of the new prison quickly. But an order came down that I was to be moved to Sector C, and the reason that happened, and I'll tell you what Sector C is in a moment. The reason that happened was because I did an interview with the Daily Mirror, a British tabloid paper, in which a lot of information came out that shouldn't have. It was supposed to be a piece. It was done by a lady named Sophie Evans, and she promised me she wouldn't show me on camera or talk about me. It was supposed to be about the violations of human rights of poor prisoners, of poor Panamanian prisoners. And what she actually did was do a piece about how I lived like a rock star on the inside of prison. And the Panamanian government the Panamanian media picked it up, and then the Panamanian government came down on me like a ton of bricks and sent me to hell. Sector C, that's where I am now and where I've been for 3.5 years. It's really an incredibly dangerous and horrifying place. Horrifying. Sector C is a place where they suspend your human rights. They don't give you food. They don't give you bedding. They don't give you toilet paper. They don't give you got to buy it all on the outside and bring it in. And if you can't, that's not their problem. We call Sector C a Panamanian death sentence. And the reason we call it that is because so many people in Sector C die. And there are 3 ways that you can die in Sector C. You can die of natural causes. The government puts so much stress on you and the conditions are so terrible and you miss your family so much and you know, it's just so difficult to live here that you expire naturally. You know, there's no health care. You're not allowed a doctor in Sector C. You know, and so medicine is contraband in Sector C. First I want to say that everything about Sector C is illegal. National Panamanian law doesn't permit it, and international laws that the Panamanians have signed treaties with the UN that doesn't permit this. A facility like Sector C doesn't exist in Iraq. I mean, in Iraq or in Iran. I mean, this is literally a torture facility. So that's one way you can die. You can expire of natural causes. Another way that you can die, and the way they tried to kill me, was they put you in with violent psychopathic prisoners hoping that they will kill you. That happened to me. When I came into Sector C, I was sitting being like evaluated by the police, and they said, where should we put him? And they said, put him in Patio 1. The boys from Cologne will kill him. And I was sitting there, and I'm like, and I said in Spanish, I said, hello, I'm sitting right here. And they're like, shut the up, you will maintain silence. And then they continue talking as if I am not there. Imagine. So I'm like, so they brought me in, they stuck me in here, and I'm Wild Bill. There isn't but one on earth. And within a short period of time, I'm in charge of the prisoners here as well. So that's that. So anyway, so that's the second way you can die. They can put you in prison and expect the prisoners to kill you. The third way that you can die, and that a lot of people die, is that you can kill yourself. They can put so much stress and pressure on you that you kill yourself, and that happens all the time. Last week, I had a young kid named Christian Mello who tied a rope around his neck and tied the rope to the banister and like literally, thank God he didn't jump off. He just slipped off. And it didn't break his neck. And so he was dangling there like strangling, and I'm like running around, I don't know what to do. So I ran into my cell, and he did this like right in front of my cell, man. This happened like 3 weeks ago. So I run into my cell, and I got a Gillette, what they call a Gillette, which is a razor blade. And I go running outside, and I took the razor blade and just cut the thing. But now he's like 10 feet off, hanging 10 feet in the air on the second story. But he fell and he broke his ankle when he fell, but at least he didn't die. And then I went downstairs and loosened the thing around his neck. So like he really attempted suicide. It was one of the weirdest things and most terrible things I've ever seen in prison. And I've got him here. I keep him closer now. I keep a closer watch on him than I did before. So there's 3 ways to die in Sector C. You can die of natural causes. Some of the gang members can kill you, or you can kill yourself. And it happens to a lot of people. The death rate here is about 9% of the prisoner. No, that's really high. Hang on. There's 127. It's about 3% per year. 3% per year. So, like every year, the longer you stay here, the higher your chances of dying in here are. If you can figure that the average stint in Sector C is about 3 years, you have a 10% chance of being killed or killing yourself or dying of natural causes. That's insane. That's like really high. 1 in 10 chance of not making it back out. So that's where I am, and I'm trying to get out. And even the police who guard Sector C, because it's not prison guards that guard Sector C, it's actually, police. They actually want to help me get out, but the prison system will not forgive me for that news article that came out in the Daily Mirror, and they won't forgive me, and I don't know what to do about it. I've been trying my ass off to find some international group that wanted. Amnesty International is a joke. I had 60 people send Amnesty International letters, and they wrote us back saying, "F off, we don't want to deal with that murdering bastard." I mean, they didn't say it like that. But they said, "I'm sorry, because of who he is, we don't want to help him." And I was like, "Fuck." So I mean, like, there's human rights for, like they help people depending on when it's like convenient, I guess, or like people like me are not allowed human rights apparently. So that was one thing, and then I did another thing too. I've started and I want to invite all the listeners. Please put this on your show as well. I made an audio diary called "Life Inside Hell." Life Inside Hell is an audio diary I post almost every day on YouTube. It's a small channel. It's not picked up yet. But it's like 200 or 300 loyal listeners that listen to me and comment every day. But if you're interested in what like life is like in Sector C and life is like for the chaplain of the church in hell, then I invite you to come and listen to me. Maybe Sean will be as good to put the link for Life Inside Hell inside the description box. I'd sure ask him to. So those are the things I'm doing to try to get. I'm trying to find an international somebody, because nationally, man, they want me to die here. I mean, they've just made that plain. And even the people who guard me are trying to help me get out. They're like, "Damn, why does poor Bill have to be here? He's like so helpful and so nice to everybody." So I mean, the cops give me an enormous amount of freedom inside Sector C. I have much more freedom. Everybody else is out for an hour and a half a day. They get patio time. I'm out from 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening, and I've been recognized by the police as the chaplain of the prison, and so I'm 7 days a week, 365 days working, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining about that at all. I'm thankful for that, and I've been able to help a lot of people. Like, I mean, I do like I just told you about, like the kid's trying to kill himself, and I give these motivational messages to get gang members out of gangs. That's what I do. And so it's an interesting thing. My life inside here, I've decided, I've put away all the bullshit, I put away all the mafia ties. I'm not making any illegal money anymore. I renounced that about 3.5 years ago. Everything that I do now is legitimate. And I do it because I believe sooner or later something good's going to happen for me. I'm trying to change my life and become a better man. So we have a program to help gang members get out of gangs, and it's successful right now. I have 14 kids involved in that. So I mean, like, I'm one guy. I got 14 kids out of gangs, and that's just this year. I mean, I've done a lot more than that, probably 60 kids getting out of gangs. It's just one prisoner. And so I think that, I'm proud of that. And those are lives that have changed, and they go back to the street, and they won't have to go back to that lifestyle again, God willing. I mean, some of them may slip back into it, who knows, but at least while they're here, they're not involved in it, and learning skills, and so teaching some kids how to read and write, stuff like that. So that's what my prison life, that's pretty much the synopsis. It's been kind of long, but that's pretty much the synopsis of my prison existence.
Bill, how did you end up becoming the prison chaplain, and what does it involve?
Well, that's a weird story, actually. I got sent here to this place. I can't tell the story without talking a little bit about like spiritual stuff, because in the jail where I was before, I did in the Cherokee jail. I did a lot of good things, but I did a lot of bad things too. There's no way you could say that my presence there wasn't an improvement to the place. The murder stopped. But I also didn't do anything to try to stem the drug trade. If nothing, I maybe even fanned the flames of it because I made money off of it indirectly, not directly, but indirectly. And so it certainly wasn't like a benevolent figure. I think that each of us are here on earth to serve your fellow man. I don't care whether your listeners are Christian or religious or not at all. Anybody can gain that from this story. And what happened to me was this. I got destroyed. I mean, literally destroyed. Going to prison wasn't that bad. But getting sent to Sector C, where I am now, was like so much worse because it's just this terrible place. And it continues to be a terrible place, even though I have a lot of freedom here. It's just a terrible place. It's like if you could imagine the worst place on earth, this is it. I mean, really. So they sent me here and I lost everything. I fully well believe it was God who said, okay, that's enough. God put me in a position to help everybody, and I did to some degree, but I helped myself as well, and I was a selfish ass. And so I got sent through, because of that interview, there was an interview I did with Sophie Evans. The Panamanian government came down on me and sent me to Sector C. Well, in Sector C, I got here, and within 6 months, I had lost all my money, my position, and my wife. I was married to a beautiful young Panamanian woman, lost all that shit. Just evaporated, all of it. It was all vanity. None of it was real. What's real in your life also stays with you, okay? If you fall down on your ass and you find you have nothing left, you never had anything. But whatever's left when you fall down on your ass, that's what you really have, and you don't have anything else. The rest of it's vanity. Like my mother hung around, stayed by my side. Some good friends helped me through that time period. So I mean, like these are really the only things I even had. I didn't realize that. So I decided to help this young man. There was a young man here who wanted to be a preacher, and I decided to help him try to organize his church services a little better, because that's what I did a lot of that, before in the past in prison. And the problem was his name was Jerry, and Jerry would preach one day, and the next day he'd be high on cocaine or white. He'd be high on white, and then one day he'd preach, and the next day he'd be drunk. And so it was like somebody that wasn't living the life at all that he was trying to, Well, anyway, so this happened one day. I have a kid here with me that's called Cop Killer, and that's obviously why he's here. He killed a bunch of cops, and so. He's this big mean ass kid. He's not a bad. He's actually not a terrible kid actually, but he's this big mean kid, right? And like he's even bigger than I am. And he calls me his father. I'm his father, and like literally he calls me dad or papa, and I call him hijo, son. And I don't know what happened between him and the preacher Jerry, but he kicked Jerry in the ass with his foot. And I was in my cell, and Jerry comes running into my cell, and Jerry says, "Bill, give me a knife." And I said, "There's a knife laying on the shelf right there." And it's like this little thing I used to peel oranges with. It's like, "No, man, a shank." I'm like, "A shank? What the hell you need a shank for? You're the preacher of the church, Jerry." He said, "No, give me a shank. I'm gonna kill Cop Killer." I'm like, "Why are you going to kill somebody, Jerry? You're the preacher of the church." He kicked me in the ass. I said, "Well, they slapped Jesus upside the head and, spit on him and stuff, dude. You're just gonna have to take it." And he said, "No. And so he says, the church." And I'm like, "Hey man, don't even say that. That like hurts my ears to hear it. Don't even say that. That's like sacrilegious. I don't like, you're the preacher of the church. You can't go around talking like that, Jerry." So he says it again, and he says, "You're the new pastor of the church," and he leaves. And I said, "Hey man, you're out of your mind. Monday morning there'll be a church service, and I'll come and find you." And no, I'm not gonna do it. So Monday morning rolled around, and he didn't want to do it, and so I led a singing service. I don't know nothing about being no preacher, man. So I come in the cell and I prayed. I asked God, I said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "You've destroyed me here. You've ground me down into dirt. I'm nothing. I have nothing. I'm like, why don't you just let me die and be done?" And God said, "You're going to preach my word." And in my heart, I mean, I'm not insane. I didn't have a conversation with God, but inside my heart told me, said, "You're going to preach my word," God said. And I said, "You're out of your mind." I mean, this is like a conversation I'm having inside myself with God, Like you're out of your mind. And God talks to me in that high school football coach voice, like, idiot, you're going to do what I say. I mean, that's like literally how God talks to me. Like, you know, and God speaks to you in the way that he speaks to you. He speaks to everybody in the way that he speaks to them, you know. And so everybody's different. But God speaks to me like my high school football coach. And so he's like, you idiot, you're going to do what I say. And if you continue on this path that you're on, you're just going to die and leave nothing. And you're not, you have this opportunity. You're a big name in Panama, and you have this opportunity to do something good. Why are you running away from it? So very, very reluctantly, I picked up the reins of being the pastor of the church. And then I was so bad at it, man. I can't even tell you. This we're talking, you know, like late 2019. I was so bad at it. I can't even begin to tell you how bad at it I was. I was an embarrassment, but I stayed with it, and I got pretty good at it. And I'm really, really good at giving messages now, and even better at taking care of the guys. Nobody ever took care of the guys. Nobody. And so I spend my time attending people like. Just crazy things happen here, and so the government came in and realized that something good was happening here. The police. Now, I want you to understand something. The police are not responsible for Sector C. They're given the task of guarding Sector C, but they're not responsible for it. That's the prison system sets all the systems and rules of Sector C. The police are just required to guard us. And the police chief, well, the police commissioner. The police commissioner came down to me. His name was Bonilla, and he said, "Hey man, I like what you're doing." He's like, "I'm going to give you a permission just to be out all day. You're free now. You're loose all day." And I mean, it was like a miracle that never happened in the history of Sector C. Literally, it was like a miracle. So he's like, from 7 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening, you're out, but you got to help. You got to do stuff, you know. And so then they gave me a job. They gave me a job like distributing the food and cleaning and stuff, which takes time off my sentence. Another thing that never happened. The first one that ever had that happen was me, and then they came to me again and said, "Hey, we want you to be the mediator between the prisoners, the gangs, and us. We're electing you mediator between." So like when the gangs and stuff fight, I have to go and be their mediator, which is a very dangerous and delicate thing, I assure you, because you can't show any favoritism. But I'm the perfect person to do it because I'm a foreigner, and the Panamanians all respect me. The Panamanians hate Americans, hate them, but they love me because I became fairly famous, and so even though they hate Americans, they love me, and I'm not affiliated with any gang, so I can go into any cell block without getting killed, because there's no gang. If I have no gang affiliations, and on all that, being a very slight celebrity, people are always willing and ready to receive Wild Bill and give him a hug and say, "Hey, you know, it's like cool," and take a picture of Wild Bill, shit like that. So my job here is I got a really cool job, man. No shit, I really got a cool job. I just help people all day long, and my ministry. You ask, what does it center around? My ministry centers around the law of the harvest, which means whatever we do, we reap the fruit of that later and more than we sowed. The law of the harvest says we reap what we sow more than we sow it, later than we sowed it. So if we're busting our ass and doing good things, we're going to reap really good things in the future. And if we're being and sowing bad seeds and evil and hatred and backstabbing and, you know, and treason, and those things are also going to come back to us, and we're going to have a terrible life in the future. And that's true. That's first thing. Second thing is law of attraction. What you think about, what you concentrate on constantly is what happens to you. So I don't have time to walk around and be sad. I don't have the time to walk around and be like, "Oh, poor me, I'm in prison," or oh, I'm a terrible man. Look at all these terrible things I did. I ain't got time for that. I've got a future still. I'm still alive. And so even though I am totally repentant, listen, I am totally repentant for the things that I've done, I don't wallow in remorse. Ain't nothing I can do about that. The Bill that did those things 15 years ago isn't alive anymore. The new Bill is here, and nobody, not you, not anybody else listening, is the same person they were 15 years ago. So I can't go around punishing myself for shit that I did when I was stupid and young, even though it was terrible. I've got to do something about it now. I've got to do something better now. And so that's what I'm doing. I don't care where, and the message here on the air here today is, if I can change in this hell where I am, what excuse do you have out there in the world not to change and be a better person? And so I talk about all that stuff on my YouTube channel, Life Inside Hell. I want you guys to go and check it out too. It's a daily audio diary that I do about things that happen here in hell, in prison. I call this place hell. Until you show me a place that's deeper than this, a deeper, darker, more horrible place than this, I'm calling this place hell. So life inside hell. That's where I am. You go check it out. It's on YouTube. But that's what my responsibilities are here. I wear a lot of hats. I'm father sometimes. Sometimes I'm whipping boys. Sometimes I get pissed off. I'm the one that they blame for everything too. And so it's a dangerous and difficult because they don't fight here. Nobody hits nobody in the face and nobody stabs nobody. They shoot you here. And so anyway, so it's a really wild and dangerous place, and that's the answer to your question.
What other projects are you working on now inside prison?
Well, right now I'm planning. I'm representing the boys in a hunger strike that's going to occur on the 1st of June. We're trying to raise awareness in the world outside and in the Republic of Panama that Sector C exists. This is a place that, your normal Panamanian has no idea exists, and nobody in the world on the outside knows that there is such a terrible place where they suspend your human rights. We're not allowed doctors. We're not allowed, the food that we're not given anything. But you're not given a bed. You're not given. They just don't take care of us at all in any way. It's a place where you're supposed to go to be punished and maybe or die. And so, people get upset about the death penalty. This is a whole lot more inhumane than the death penalty. The death penalty, at least they kill you and you're dead. They drag it out a really long time and it's still the same result. And so we're trying to bring awareness to the human rights violations and lack of, the government of the Republic of Panama in respect to the prisoners' human rights and their legal rights as well, is not living up to its obligations by national law or international law. So that's what the hunger strike is about, to raise awareness and to make the government say, oh shit, we got to do something about this, Because if the world knew what Panama was doing to its prisoners in Sector C, it wouldn't stand for it. Now, the governments of the world know, and as I've talked about it before, are very much in favor of Sector C because they use it as a way to torture people without having to get their hands dirty. I explained that before, that let's say some guy's got a red notice, an Interpol red notice on him from the United States. They cram him in Sector C and they say, you want to fight that red notice or you want to go back home? And after 6 months in hell, he's ready to go back home. And even if he's guilty, if he's not guilty, it doesn't matter. He's ready to go back home and just to get out of here so he doesn't die and can stop being abused by the government and the prisoners. Foreigners are horribly abused in Sector C. I'm not, but I'm a Wild Bill, ain't I? You know what I mean? So ain't many people going to abuse me. But like a normal foreign prisoner can be terribly abused here. They snatch you up and grab you, put a knife to your throat and say, call your family and put $5,000 in this account. And what are you going to do? Say no? They'll kill you. And so this is a terrible place, and it's run that way on purpose by the government. The government uses it that way. And so we're trying to bring awareness to the total lack of rehabilitation, the total lack of human rights. And so we've got a hunger strike starting on the 1st of June. If you are out there in listener land and you're listening to this podcast, this YouTube channel, and you know a human rights activist or a reporter that would like to speak to me, I'm asking you to come and find me. I'm easy to find. You can look me up on the YouTube channel, Life Inside Hell. And in the description box on every single episode, there's my email address, my Facebook, my Instagram. I'm going to ask Sean if he doesn't mind to post the Life Inside Hell link here in the description box below. But it's really easy. You can just pull the little search bar down and type in Life Inside Hell, and you're going to pull up my YouTube channel. And you can get in touch with me. I'm not hard to get in touch with, so I'm pretty easy to get in touch with, actually. So that's what I'm doing right now. We're organizing a hunger strike, and that should be really interesting. I'm participating as well myself. And so that's starting on the 1st of June, and we're hoping to have some sort of success. We're hoping to get some of the guys out of Sector C or get Sector C closed. I would very much like to see Sector C closed. What a terrible facility. And that's the project I'm working on right now. Also, as I said before, I have an audio diary that I do every day called Life Inside Hell. So I hope to see you guys over there. If you guys are if you're interested in what really day-to-day life in hell is like, you can go over there and check it out. And there's also some of my memoirs are there as well. Like I just did a recent piece about my relationship with General Manuel Antonio Noriega. Noriega was the dictator in Panama for about 10 years here. And I got to know him. He was in prison here with me for a little while, and I got to know him, and we got fairly close. I called him Uncle Tony, at his request. His request was I would call him Uncle Tony. So Uncle Tony was a good guy. He's passed on now, but you can hear some of the stories I have about Manuel Antonio Noriega. Recently, I talked about that, and of course, every day I post something on there just about like this is what happened, or this is what I think, or it's just my little. It's really a therapy thing for me as well. So Life Inside Hell, go over there and check it out. But if you, again, and one more time and I'll shut up, but if you're a reporter, if you know a reporter that would like a good story, I'll give you a good story. Or if you know a human rights attorney that does pro bono work, for the love of God, we need somebody on the outside that cares about people dying here in hell. So that's it. That's pretty much all I got working on right now.
Are you able to get into detail about gang culture? How many prison gangs are there? Are they related to the gangs on the streets? How are the gangs structured? Are you able to name the gangs, or would that put your life at risk? What is the initiation into a gang? How do the gangs corrupt the institutions? Working with the guards? Do the guards have their own gangs? Access to weapons, contraband?
Okay, Sean, this is a really complicated answer and an unexpected answer, I think. Maybe you said something here. I'm going to give you some personal experiences and a point of view that nobody else has, because I'm embedded with the gangs. Literally, I live with them. I am their mediator here. We look at street gangs as like, at least, well, first of all, to answer your question, yes, the gangs that are on the inside are the same ones that are on the outside. The ones that are on the inside exist on the outside as well. And we look at those gangs as like totally evil organizations people on the outside, I'm talking about your listeners, thinking about a street gang as a totally evil organization that's bent on dominating other people, etc., etc., etc. I have sympathy for the gangs. My whole existence is based on getting kids out of the gang life. That's what I do in prison right now. That's my job as chaplain. At the same time, I have very much sympathy for the gangs, and I want to get there. We'll get there in just a minute. But you said something in your question that made me think, and you said, do I see the street gangs corrupting the system? The prison gangs on the inside that are street gangs. The prison gangs on the inside, do I see them corrupting the system? And the answer is no. I see the system corrupting the street gangs, and I want to answer that question immediately right now. Why? How do the gangs prosper on the inside? They prosper because of the drug trade. You got guys that get busted. Listen to this story. This is a common thing. Okay, people get busted in mule cars and in drug boats. These are boats bringing Colombian Bam Bam, white as you call it, from Colombia north to sell in the United States. And so they get busted. And let's say that there's 300 kilograms of that on board. The cops report 250 kilograms, and then corrupt officials. It is not the Panamanian government's position to sell drugs in the prison, but corrupt police officers conspire, gangs, quote unquote gangs, organizations of police officers, corrupt organizations within the police, bring the drugs in and conspire to bring them to the prisoners. How do they do that? First of all, they find a gang that they want to work with. There's an introduction is made, and they decide. So they bring 4 or 5 kilograms of white in on the inside to those gangs to sell on the inside, because there's a lot of money in a prison, just so you know, a lot of cash. Then those guys sell the drugs, and the cops come back in 2 weeks bringing more drugs and collecting the money. That is 100% profit for the cops, because the cops didn't have to do it. They didn't even have to buy the drugs, did they? So that's one thing. And then how do firearms get inside prisons? Firearms get inside prisons the same way. The cops confiscate firearms off of the drug boats, or off of mule cars, or off of out of just a bust in the street. And instead of reporting the firearms, they bring them and they give them freely. They don't sell them. They give them to the street gangs to protect the investment of the white that they're floating on the short, that they're loaning on the short to be paid for later. The guns on the inside are to protect the police officers' investment. So I don't see, without the help of the police officers, the street gangs would be on the inside would be a lot less powerful. So I see the system itself, corrupt officials within the system, corrupting the system. I mean, like, you got guns in here, man, inside prison. People are shot inside prison. I mean, like, a lot of them. I'll send you a bunch of links to those, to newspaper, local newspaper reports of, prisoners being shot, murdered inside prison on a regular basis. Happens once a week. How is that possible? In this facility alone, 8 prisoners have been murdered this year so far with guns. 8 prisoners in 5 months. How's that possible? On the inside of a prison? Every time they have a search, they pick up 30 firearms. How's that possible? Well, it is because the national police are a corrupt bunch of assholes that propagate the drug trade on the inside of prison. The biggest gang here is a gang called Baghdad. That's a huge gang. And then the second biggest gang and a rival to Baghdad is Calor. And so, but there are maybe 25 very serious, very well organized street gangs, and 250 smaller gangs. But I mean, the question is, everybody asks, is your gang affiliated or not affiliated with Baghdad? That's the biggest. Baghdad is the name of the biggest street gang, and then Calor is the second biggest. I have a YouTube channel that I'm constantly pushing called Life Inside Hell, and I did an expose on the gangs in English, speaking in English, and having no idea that any of the street gangs here would ever hear it. They heard it. And one of the boys, I won't say which one to protect my own self, but one of the leaders from that gang called me and said, if you don't take it down, we're going to kill you. So I ended up having to take it down, and I lost a lot of followers because of that. But it was either that or being shot, and so it's really difficult to talk. It's even dangerous to even talk about. I don't think that this show will be heard by any Panamanian gangsters, but who knows? So the street gangs, and I said I have sympathy for the street gangs, and I'll tell you why. Because let's say you go to prison. You're a guy off the street, and you got caught for breaking and entering or something stupid, and they put you in jail for 6 years. And you go to prison, you don't got no money. It's the street gangs that take care of you. They get something from you, but they're not like this. They're not an evil organization, really. They're just a bunch of guys that are together trying to survive, because in Panamanian prison, they don't give you fucking food, man. They don't give you food. They don't give you clothes. They don't give you a bed. They don't give you toilet paper. They don't give you a toothbrush. They don't give you toothpaste. They don't give you jack shit. They don't give you medicine. They don't give you nothing. So who is supposed to take care of the prisoners on the inside? The prisoner's supposed to be able to take care of himself from inside. His family members are supposed to take care of him. If you ain't got no family, you fall and you get put in prison and you don't have a family, who's going to take care of you? The prison system is failing these kids, you understand? These kids come into prison not affiliated with a gang, and they leave with, gang affiliation. Now they're ready to go murder. The prison system is broken, but broken beyond. I mean, a Panamanian prison has an almost 87% reoffender rate. 87% of these motherfuckers they get out of prison, come back to prison. Can you believe that? That's horrifying. New victims, new crimes, new sentences, constantly being a parasite on society. And the thing about it is, I don't understand why the Panamanian public isn't rioting in the street and holding the prison system responsible for this total failure of working with the gangs. They're not doing anything at all. And a guy like me, who's running a program that I created on myself, I invented it myself, you'd think that the Panamanian government said, Bill's doing a good job. He got 15 kids out of gangs. We don't even get one out of the gangs. One guy got 15 kids this year out of the gangs, and over a period of history, about 65 in 3.5 years. You'd think that they'd say, let's support that guy and see how he could work with us. Instead of that, they do everything possible to try to stop me, hinder me, trip me up, like, it's just insane. It's just insane. It's like I don't understand it even. I don't even understand the prison system itself is like sadistic or something. Like they want the kids locked in their cells smoking dope. That's what they want. The kids in their cells, using drugs, being gangbangers, having guns. That's what the prison system wants. I mean, that's not what the law says. The law says the prison system exists for the rehabilitation of prisoners. And we have to remember that prison itself is the punishment, isn't it? We don't have to be punished further. Prison, you're losing your freedom, is the punishment. And going to prison is supposed to be a rehabilitation experience. A rehabilitation experience. That's not happening here. The government's failing the gangs, failing society. It's not failing the prisoners, it's failing society. And so the street gangs here there's 25 very well organized street gangs, 250, little local, 20 member gangs. And the system itself allows and propagates the corruption of itself. And so I hear a good prison official isn't a prison official that keeps everything quiet. The people that get killed on the inside, that it doesn't get out to the news media. He is lauded as a good prison official. He kept everything quiet. We need somebody to do something here, something positive. And there are inmate leaders like myself that want to help kids get out of gangs. And it's just not happening. The government is against us. The government wants the gangs to continue. It's a strange thing. I don't understand it.
Hey, Bill, you said you mediated disputes between the gangs. Could you take us through one of those disputes, detailing which gangs were involved, what the dispute was over, how serious was the threat, what was the risk to you to mediate it, what you actually said to broker the peace between both parts?
I can talk about it, but I'm not going to tell you exactly. I mean, it's difficult because it's like asking a priest to talk about somebody's confession, because it is actually I signed a privacy agreement with the government about it, so I don't want to lose my position talking about it. So naming parties, I really can't do that. I mean, like ethically, I can't name different parties, but I can talk generally about what that's like. Let's say that one kid disrespects another kid from a rival gang. What we want to happen when that occurs is that they look for mediation. They ask the pastor of the church to come and calm everything down. That's what we want to happen, and that's what 40% of the time happens. 60% of the time it escalates into violence beyond anything mediation can deal with. But 40% of the time, one or the other or both of the rival gangs will come and talk to me and say, "Hey, we got a problem, and it's stupid, and we don't want people getting killed over it," because they don't. It's not in anybody's interest, for there to be violence, really. Even though there is violence on a regular basis, it's not anybody. It's against business interests of gangs for there to be violence, because there's problems with the police when there is violence. Something happened. I'll tell you something that happened in the D, in another sector that didn't have anything to do with me. And I'll give you that instance of how mediation could have helped. In the yard outside, there are two kids. One disrespects the other. I don't know what it was about. I think it's probably over a woman. Normally the disputes are over women or drugs, and like drugs that they have that they consume. And the one says something ugly to the other one, and the other one responds and says something ugly, and they both promise to kill one another, and they leave. Now at that point, if mediation could step in, if you could step in with mediation at that point, then let's say one of the kid, the ones that direct the gang hear about it and say, hey Bill, come here, talk to these kids. And then I go talk to them and explain, you guys are trying to get out of jail, and it's just mediation's really simple, actually. It's like, just tell the truth, like, hey, you guys are both getting out of jail, I'm not asking you to be friends, but why don't you not kill each other, and so that you don't get any more time, so you can get out and get back to your family. You don't get any more time to get out of prison and get back to your family, because if you do, and if you do kill one another, there's just going to be a whole bunch more shit and your life is going to get substantially worse because of what happened, the pressure the government's going to put on you, and even the leaders of your pandilla, your gang, are asking me to speak to you. That works like 90% of the time, and it works because I'm Wild Bill too. That's another thing that we haven't talked about. I'm like the premier killer here in Panama. So when I speak, the boys listen, because like I'm like the Godfather or something. Of not the Godfather, like I don't run the show. I don't run the gangs or run the show, but like I'm a respectable figure in Panamanian criminal society. Everybody wants to hear what Wild Bill has to say, so that's good. And so I use it for that and that positive purpose. And anyway, so there was no gang mediation in the story that I was telling you about these two kids in the Sector D, and both of them come the next day to the yard, and both of them are armed, have the gun, have one of the pistols of their gangs, and one opens up on the other. One kills one. He killed one. This happened in December last year. No, January this year. He killed the one kid that had a gun. They both have guns, but one of them didn't even draw his out. The other one shot him in the face and shot 2 or 3 of his friends as well. And so he killed one and like injured 2 more. I actually have a video of that somewhere. And that was a stupid thing. I mean, it wasn't even over business, wasn't over anything that happened in the street. It was just over somebody, talking shit on the inside of prison. So my job is, generally speaking, what happens is the heads of the gangs, the ones that direct the gangs, and there's more than one director for each gang as well. It's almost like they're run by council, So they say, hey, call Bill and get him in here and talk to find out if we can't mediate this thing so that it doesn't have to escalate, because it's not in their favor to be fighting, and all these gangs have a relatively predispositioned territory. And so, but kids are kids, and there's testosterone in here, and they're 20 years old, and they got guns, and one wants to be tougher than the other one. And sometimes you talk to a kid, and you just ain't getting through, and you just got to give up. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, like sometimes I say, hey kid, I don't give a f***, I want to kill him. Well, if that's your attitude, then there's nothing I can do, because I can't make you. I'm not going to incur. I'm also neutral in everything, so I have to maintain neutrality. So when one side won't like concede, then I just have to let it be and whatever happens. But I'm fairly successful actually in the cases that I deal with. I'm successful 90% of the time. 10% of the time you get some kid that's just an asshole, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you just got to let that go. But I only get to mediate about 40% of the violence in Sector C. 60% of the violence is unmediated, meaning ordered from the top down. When it's ordered from the top down, ain't nothing I can do about it. So, and when I said I signed a privacy disclosure, I actually did sign a privacy disclosure and like a waiver of guilt. I made the prison authorities asked me to do this, and the gang members as well, like got together and asked me to do this mediation, and I said I'd do it, but I want everybody that gets mediated has to sign, or like everybody that I help has to sign a piece of paper saying I'm not responsible for the outcome of anything, because I'm not, like if I go into, I'm not a licensed counselor or anything, so if I go and I tell a kid, hey, you don't do this, don't do that, and he goes and kills somebody anyway, I don't want anybody coming back and saying, hey, why didn't you do a better job? Well, I did the best I can, because I'm flying by the seat of my pants. And so I actually had the police draw up a form, and I signed it, and the police commissioner here signed it, the police commissioner before this one, and I have a copy of it. So if anything ever happens and the district attorney wanted to try to prosecute me for some reason, I have the police's signature here that I'm not responsible for any of the violence. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's important, because I have to cover my own ass, because I'll tell you what, I don't know about anywhere else, but the district attorneys here are a bunch of and they really break it off in people's ass for things that they didn't do and stuff, and so you have to be really careful with them. The biggest bad guys I've ever met in the world work out of the district attorney's office, the prosecutor's office here in Panama. They call it the fiscal. A bunch of rat bastards in the fiscal's office. What's interested in justice, they are not. Interested in putting people in prison, they are. There's a big difference, I mean, In a Panamanian prison, I'd say as high as 15, 10, 10, at least as high as 10% of the people in Panamanian prison are innocent. I bet it's probably about that way everywhere if you want the truth. And so I'm not innocent. I'm guilty of sin, and that allows me. That's another thing that allows me to advocate for the innocence of others because I am guilty, and I'm not advocating. I'm not here crying, I'm innocent. I'm guilty as hell, and so it allows me. It gives me in a good position to advocate for the innocent. Because I'm not advocating for myself, and I don't get anything out of it. I don't get anything out of helping anybody. So it's a way to keep things honest.
Can you describe the tattoos in there that you see on the fellas around you? The whites, the blacks, the Mexicans, they've all got their own tattoo cultures. The white, it's all that Aryan Brotherhood stuff. What's common in the prison you're at?
Well, now here's another thing about Panamanian prison. That separation by racism doesn't exist here. I mean, I'm like a American white guy in with a bunch of Latino white guys, a bunch of black guys from Cologne, and we're like one family. So the racism I'd like to expand on that. The racism that exists in the United States and the UK is manufactured totally by the government and the news media because it doesn't exist here. It just doesn't exist. You wouldn't think anything about like being in mixed racial company here. It's not something you would even notice or think about. It's not something I even remember. I don't even remember it. I mean, I've been here for 20 years, right? 19 years, and like 6 free and 13 in prison, and I can't even remember what it's like in the States. I mean, I can remember it. That's a lie, but I mean, like I had a friend of mine recently, an American guy came here, and he was a black guy, and he was like horrified, I think is the right word, that like I was put in charge to take care of him. And he's like, look, man, and I'm like, dude, there are different rules here. Relax. Because we're all brothers here, and it doesn't matter what color you are here. And so racism literally doesn't exist in Panama. If you got a daughter, you're a white guy and you're a white Latino, let's say, and you have a daughter and she goes out with a black kid, you're not worried about the color of his skin. You're worried about how his school marks are. And this is how it should be. And so in prison is not separated in any way by race at all, in no part. So the tattoos here, and also the tattoos that most of the kids here do are horrible. I mean, they're just like atrociously bad artwork. The artwork is like something I could doodle with a pen. I mean, it's so bad that it's like horrifyingly bad. The majority of the tattoos. I've got a bunch of tattoos. I've got 101 tattoos actually, and mine are great. But I'll tell you what I did and how I did that. A friend of mine, well, he wasn't a friend of mine until he got put in prison. This guy was a transit cop, which is like a highway patrolman in Panama. He was a police officer, and he was dirty, and he got busted helping escort shipments of kilograms of cocaine. So he got sent to prison, and in prison, he showed me his artwork. He draws. He's very, very good. His artwork is very good. And I said, well, this was like in 2013. I said, hey man, you want a tattoo? And he says, yeah, I do, but I don't have a machine or anything. So I called to the States on Amazon and bought like the best tattoo gun, the best digital tattoo controller, 32 colors, all the needles. I mean, like real stuff. Like most of these guys are tattooing with some shit they made up with a guitar string or something. I mean, it's like awful, horrible, terrible. And so we had like the real setup, and I bought 2 complete pig skins off of a dead pig, and we shaved them, and he began tattooing them until his tattoos looked good. And when they looked good, we started tattooing me. And I said, I'll give you all this shit. It was like $2,000 worth of shit, and it cost me another $500 to get it in. It's like $2,500 shit. So I'll give it to you, but you're gonna tattoo me until I'm sick of being tattooed. And so we started, and I did like maybe 95 tattoos with him. And then I tried to let another kid tattoo me one time, and my friend was just the best. And he's free now. He went free, and he's tattooing in the street on the outside now. He's got his own tattoo shop now, and it was like kind of cool because I get him to start. But like the tattoo guys that do work here, like a tattoo costs $20. A very large tattoo would cost $20, and look like absolute horseshit when it's finished. My tattoos are all pretty good. Well, they're really good, actually, if you want the truth. And like everybody comments on them everywhere I go in here. Like, did you get those? Actually, get those in prison? Because when I got put in prison, I had 2 tattoos, one on each arm, and that was it. But now I'm like full up with tattoos, and I love tattoos. I get out, I'll get a whole bunch more, you know. And so, but like gangs do tattoo here, but there's a guilty by association law here. So you got to be careful. Like if you're in a gang and everybody gets the same tattoo, you're all going inside for 6 years if you get caught doing anything. So it's dangerous. I mean, a lot of guys get. Everybody does tattoo themselves, but it's a you know, not as much as it used to be. It used to be before they passed that law, all the gangs had their tattoo, but now they're not having so much of it because there's a anti-pandilla, anti-gang law. And it's like literally guilty by association. You got same tattoo as everybody else, you're going inside for 6 years, buddy.
What's the worst food you've experienced throughout your incarceration?
Yeah, the food here, like, okay, what people don't understand about a Panamanian prison, like in the normal Panamanian prisons, they give you food, and it's not very good, but it's not that bad. Actually, the food in the old David jail is pretty good. I'm actually, sometimes I bought extra even, it was so good. You know, like some swag, on the swag, meaning like contraband food. I would buy extra food from the kitchen. It was pretty good. But the food in Sector C is like so bad that you can't eat it. I mean, even the poorest of prisoners don't eat it. It comes and we just throw it away out of the pack. It has, like, sometimes has cockroaches in it, bits of broken glass, rocks. I broke a molar here trying to eat it. Literally, I broke my back left bottom back molar. I broke in half. It still broke, you know. A big chunk of my tooth come out. So you can't eat it. And the worst food I've ever ate in prison is none. I went about 3 weeks one time without anything to eat. And that was a horrifying experience. Horrifying. And if you haven't tried, well, you say, oh, I fasted for a day. You don't fucking have a clue. You don't have a clue. If you fasted for a week, you don't fucking have a clue. Because somebody on the outside that's fasting is electing to fast, right? When you're starving to death and you have no idea when your next meal is going to come, that's when it gets real. I ate a potato chip off of the floor one time. That actually happened. I wrote the embassy a letter about that and told them, I said, you know, I'm literally picking up things I find on the floor to eat because I haven't anything to eat. And so the short answer is the worst thing I've ever experienced to eat in a Panamanian prison is nothing. And the daily fare that comes here is not edible, so you have to bring your own food in. Like I ate, like recently, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I can't remember when it was. My friends all remember, my friends online remember, maybe it was even as long as a month or so ago. I ate one of the foods that came because it didn't look too bad, and I spent like 3 days shitting after that, like diarrhea with fever. So you just can't eat it. Like I say, it's just not edible. The food situation in a normal Panamanian prison, man, I eat great. When I was in the David public prison, I ate like a king. They would let me bring my food in from outside. So I ate, like, anytime I wanted pizza, whatever I wanted, I would get, you know, it was no big deal. But the food in Sector C, where I am, in this punishment hell, the Panamanian death sentence place, it's just horrific.
Bill, you must have met some interesting characters inside the Panamanian prison system. I know you mentioned Cop Killer. Could you give us Cop Killer's backstory? And could you give us the backstories of any of the other guys that you've met who you thought their stories were particularly fascinating?
The story of Mata Policia, Cop Killer. Mata Policia means cop killer. Ricardo Caballero is his name. I was speaking to him this morning, actually, about this, asking permission to. So the thing you got to be real careful. People, you know, you can't. I can't be like a journalist and so I have to ask everybody's permission, you know, before. I can't just tell somebody else's shit, you know. So, but he told me it'd be fine. And so he was like a kid who sold drugs and like kind of a bully kid, actually, you know, a bad kid. He's a big kid. He's bigger than I am. He's 26 years old. I asked him how old he was. And I met him 4 years ago. So when I met him, he was 22. Very young to be in a shithole like this, you know, with a 30-year sentence. So he had problems with the police his whole life. He was in and out of what amounts to juvenile prison here, juvenile hall, reform school, etc. And he had been selling drugs in the neighborhood and generally being an ass and a nuisance. And the police were looking for him and couldn't find him. And so they got a hold of his sister, and I think they questioned her very hard. And being the monsters that the police are here, they assaulted her sexually. And he obviously didn't like that very much. And so he waited until each little barrio, each little neighborhood has a police station in it. And he waited until nighttime when the two cops were on that had sexually assaulted his, and that's allegedly, but I believe him. I think it's true. The story wouldn't make any sense without that part. So, but he waited until they were on, and he walked in there and pulled out a .38 special and shot both of them in the head, and left. But being a stupid ass kid, that the crime went completely unsolved. But being a stupid ass kid, he started, bragging about it, how he'd killed the cops. So that got back to the cops, and eventually they got around and arrested him and arrested him for homicide and gave him 30 years for those murders. And so now he's on the inside, and he's been in here for about 5 years, I think. I think he was about 19 when that happened, and maybe 21. I don't know. I don't know exactly, but he's been in here for about 5 or 6 years. And he's 26 years old now. And like I say, when I came here, he was really problematic. He was a really problematic kid. He didn't want to go in his cell. He fought with the cops every day, to the point where we actually kicked him out of here. We kicked him out. And he passed around other cell blocks. Like, we have the power to throw somebody out of our cell block if we don't want them to live there. If we say they're problematic, we have that right, or not right, but we carry that. Everybody, all in a Panamanian prison, if you are in a cell block and somebody's behaving poorly and can't get along with anybody else, those have the right to throw his ass out. And we did, was unfortunately. But then like 2 years ago, he wrote me a letter and asked me, he said he was sorry for all the things he did and he'd learned his lesson and could he come back. And so I wrote him back a letter and I told him he could come back, but he had to behave himself, and he has very much behaved himself since then. I have to be honest, he's really changed a lot. I see a lot more maturity in him. And I love him, like a son in a way, really. Sometimes I want to strangle this dumbass because he gets on my nerves, but I really do. I mean, that's like anybody, I guess. He's a kid. What do you expect? But I'd like to say, he's a good kid. He's not a good kid. He's a mean little bastard. He's a huge kid. He's a mean bastard. but I do love him very much, and end up taking care of him all the time. So we made lunch the other day, and I don't know. Anyway, he's funny. But when he wants to be, he can be a real ass too. So it's like you gotta. Don't ever let yourself get sucked in. You can't let yourself get sucked in. And so you have to remember that this isn't a place where like things are normal and people are normal. People are fucked up. You got to be fucked up to be in here. But he's good enough for me anyway. I love him and take care of him. And there are a million other stories like that. I was actually thinking about writing another book, writing like Villains I Know or something like that, Villains I've Known, something like that, and do like 10 inmate profiles. I think that might be a pretty good project for next book. I'm trying to get my current book published. I've got a book written called Concentration Camp 2000, which is about Sector C and all the stories that have happened here in Sector C and the things I've seen and the horror. It's about this place. It's about a massacre that occurred in 2019 at Christmas, the La Jolla Christmas massacre, where 15 were killed with AK-47s on the inside, a gun battle between prisoners on the inside. And it's a play-by-play of how that went down, and then my experiences in Sector C and what I've learned as a man preaching the Word of God here in Sector C. So if you're a publisher, reach out, please. Come find me on Life Inside Hell. If you pull the description box down on the YouTube channel, Life Inside Hell, you'll see all my contact information there. Email address, Facebook, Instagram. So make sure that you guys are listening now. Make sure you go over to Life Inside Hell and subscribe, like and subscribe. And I hope Sean won't mind me prostituting my own YouTube channel and his. I'm a little bitty, and he's a great big guy, So Sean's got a great big show, and I've got a little bitty show. So anyway, but come and find me there. If you're a publisher, or if you know anybody that would like to publish a book like that as well. I mean, I could self-publish it. I've got a self-published book out. but I really wanted to be a published author. I think my work is good enough to be published, and so anyway, so there's a lot of stories in here. There's a lot of horror stories. Mata Policia, cop killer, his story is tragic. I mean, a young kid that threw his life away killing cops, but he'll be out. I mean, if he learns to behave himself, he'll be out by the time he's 40. So it's not like his life is completely over. But we were talking about that today. I told him he's going to have to get his shit together and figure out what the fuck he's going to do with his life.
Did you ever use the internet or any kind of technology to facilitate your contract killings?
No, not really. I don't know. Like, I was kind of behind on technology because from 2005 I was stuck in the jungle, and so like I didn't get a chance to use. I didn't have internet in my house even, really. Now, I had a cell phone, just like not a BlackBerry, but like a regular cell phone, just a regular old, throwaway $19 one you buy. I bought a box of them. I bought a box of cell phones, like, I don't know, for like $200, like 10 cell phones. I would use one for a month and just throw it with its chip away, and then get a new cell phone, a new chip, and use it. And I figured that was the easiest way to keep them from. I mean, I know how hard it is to get a phone tapped. I mean, it takes them a couple of weeks of paperwork to get a phone tapped, and so I would just throw it away every month, and then that was, in my mind anyway, that was a pretty good way to keep the FBI, CIA from being able to tap my phone. Like internet, I had an email, but I don't remember ever using it once even. So, but I was a little bit, I got put in prison in 2010, and everybody was still using. BlackBerries were still new then, and we hadn't gone over to like smartphones yet. I don't even think there was a smartphone yet. I think there was maybe an iPhone was out. I don't know. I don't remember exactly the time, but I know that I got introduced to handheld internet technology when I got put in prison. That was the first thing I bought was a BlackBerry. They had the old ball in the center that rolled around. It didn't even have a finger sensor. It had like an Atari ball, like on a video game. So I'm a little bit before, technology. I was my crimes and stuff were just a hair before technology came out. So I mean, I knew how to do an internet search, and I like occasionally I would go to when I needed to know something. Maybe once a month I would go to what was called an internet cafe here and pay the $1 for an hour's worth of internet use or something, just to research something or something I didn't know. But very rarely did I use much internet at all.
Have you ever heard about contract killings on the dark web?
I think that's. I mean, maybe there are some people doing that, but that's like some spy novel bullshit. I never met anybody doing that. Most people did what I did, worked for a patron, worked for somebody else, or you have a handler. Most handlers for actual contract killing are lawyers. I wrote a short story, I don't even know where it is, called Reaper. It was the character loosely based on my own life, but I mean, it was like all fictional. No, it wasn't any of it real. But he was based out of Florida, and the lawyer, a lawyer was his handler, and that's generally how it works. I mean, I don't know that dark. I don't know. Maybe there is. I can't speak, but I never met anybody in this profession that was like that. Most guys, we're all just a bunch of spooks that work out of a lawyer's office. Because you want somebody killed, the best person to talk to is a lawyer, because they have certain legal protections. They can't be forced. They can walk a little dirtier and not be forced to talk about it. So that's generally how most of my contract killings. I mean, I did about. I don't even want to say, but I did a fair amount of contract killing, and almost all of them, except for 2, came through a lawyer. So I don't, that dark web. I think that's great for a Tom Clancy novel or something. But I mean, like in reality, I don't think it's like that.
So if the contract killing comes through a lawyer, does that mean you have to go to the lawyer's office and speak to them face to face, because it would not be safe to discuss it on the phone? How is the payment arranged? What's the mechanics of the whole process?
Also, all that You see on TV about half down, half at the end. I never did any of that. I did the job, and if you didn't pay me, I'd kill you. You know? And so, with the lawyer, you don't got to worry about it because he's professional. You know he's going to pay, and because you have built a relationship with him. But if it's a individual contractee, you know, that's expected. I'm going to do this job, and you're going to pay me at the end, or I'll put you in the same fucking hole, you know? So, well, again, I'm pretty far out of date. I think the mechanics of it now is through Bitcoin and shit. I don't know. That didn't exist, or at least that wasn't widely used when I was... I always accepted my payment in cash, man. I want my money, you know? But I think they do Bitcoin now and stuff like that. You're not ever gonna make a phone call. I don't know. I had a phone, like I said, you buy those little cheap ass throwaway phones. Those you can use for one conversation and throw them away. It costs $20, and so I did a lot of that actually. I'd be like, here, call me at this number, you know, and then after I use the phone, I throw it away. I don't use it ever again. And so that's actually how I learned about the throwaway phones. I didn't know about them until I got into Central America. Here, back in those days, you could buy them for $9 sometimes. Sometimes you could find them for $9. I'd buy 20 of them, you know, for $200. Each one comes with its own SIM chip and everything. So generally speaking, those are pretty secure, actually. I mean, for a week or two. You can even use them for a week or two. Because it takes us, like a wiretap. Like if the CIA or somebody's listening to you, they don't ask for a wiretap, but that's not usable in a court of law, either, first of all, and second of all, the CIA don't give a shit about hits. The CIA, FBI cares, but the CIA don't give a fuck about whatever. They don't care about like that. That's small potatoes. They're worried about like government shit. So the FBI has to get wiretaps to do their stuff. At least they used to. I don't know what the hell they do anymore. Maybe they don't have to anymore. But I did like either in face to face, and I accepted all my money in cash, or sometimes in property or like I did a lot of like if you wanted to send me a transaction. I had this little guy in Panama City, I won't say who, that had a lot of gold on hand, and I would buy gold on him at 90%. So let's say a hit contract was $100,000, he'd give me $90,000 of gold. I would transfer the money into his account, have the contractee, when they pay the contract, transfer the money into his account, pick up the gold, and then like 2 days later I go pick up the gold, and then like $100,000 of gold is a very little, it's a tiny little bag. It's not very much, you know, it's not, I don't know, weighs a couple of pounds. It's not, you know, less even. It's not that much. And so when you figure gold's $1,000 an ounce, so 100 ounces, what's that, like 6 or 7 pounds? And so it's not very much. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I would do that. I did that a lot, actually. I had a lot of gold. And also, I think back in those days, I was pretty well. I thought about holding assets in gold and precious metals, and so that's how I always got paid. One of the two ways, either in cash or I'd have them, if they were absolutely had to do a wire transfer, then they could transfer it into the account of this little Arab guy that I knew that had a lot of gold. So, and you didn't always do face to face. Like the lawyer would call me and be like, "You got a number?" And I would give him, 67 blah 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 blah. Here's the number, and then I'd go turn the thing on and wait for his phone call. So it's not like, but it is a face to face kind of business, you know.
So when you were active, Bill, what were the rates for a contract killing, and did it vary depending upon the difficulty of the job, accessibility to the target? Any other complications, etc.? Have you got any stories?
Like in my height of my career, I stopped working as a contract killer and I was hunting fugitives is what I was doing at the end. When it all went down, when it all sank, I had actually stopped working as a contract killer, and I made more money working for myself. I would hunt fugitives, often pedophiles. Like I used to hunt mafia contracts too. I did that too, which is also freelance work, meaning I'm serving time. I can talk about this, but I don't want to talk about names or anything like that. But I killed a man, and I'm serving time for this crime, so I can speak about it. But I killed a man who had a mafia contract on his head for $125,000. He had ratted on like a whole bunch of people in Florida and in the 1990s, and put away some big heavy hitters in the American Italian mafia. the Italian-American mafia. And so these guys put a contract out for him, and just through an accident, I found out about it and who he was, and like doing a little research on him, and so I collected on that contract actually. But I mean, in my later years, I wouldn't get out of the bed for less than $250,000. I didn't like to work often. I mean, I didn't like to work often. It was stressful, and I was already wealthy, so I didn't work very often. But like in the beginnings, I was, we're doing jobs for $20,000, $30,000, and so I did a job once. This is what happened to me. I was just a worker. I was like a slave. But I did a job in which I found $600,000 in a safe in the house where I did the job that nobody knew about. $650,000 in cash. And so I became overnight wealthy, fairly wealthy. $650,000 US is quite a bit of money. And so I went to the group that I was working with, the quote-unquote cartel, the loose federation of men, and said, I am now one of you. And several said, no, but you're a worker. And I said, well, then I'll just kill all of you, and the ones that resist. And everybody was like, welcome to the club, Bill. So that's how I became an equal amongst them, just through sheer violence, or the threat of it anyway. And they knew I was really good at my job, and I was so good at it that they didn't have anybody else to do it anymore. They didn't ask anybody else to do killings anymore, and so they didn't have anybody to send to kill me. And so when I said, no, I'm one of the boys, I'm one of the partners, and there were several who said no, and I said, well, I'll start killing off your children, and we'll see whether or not you change your mind. And everybody said, no, welcome to the club. And so that's pretty much the long and short of it. So I only worked as an underling for about not even a year, like 8 months before that happened, and then that happy accident of finding out a large amount of money allowed me to expand and become an equal amongst the others.
Hey, Bill, did you tell us a story of how you got the ankle injury in a gunfight?
To be perfectly honest with you, it wasn't much of a gunfight. I'll tell you how it happened. I was collecting money. I was still in the States then, and I was collecting money from a guy who owed money, and I was holding him, and I had this little rubber thing that it's like it's like a big piece of rubber hose filled with lead, but not much. It's heavy, but it's not heavy enough to like break bones, and you like hold people and hit them with it. And that's what was happening. I was holding a debtor, and I was hitting him. And now an interesting thing about people who owe money, you always threaten to kill them, but you would never, ever do it. Because if you kill them, you lose the debt. The debt is if they are the debt. And so, like, you might hurt them very badly, but you would never kill them. But you might threaten to kill them. Anyway, so I was holding the guy by his collar and beating him, and he reached down into his ankle and he had a small 320, a small 32 caliber pistol, a small semi-automatic pistol in his ankle holster, and he pulled it and he shot me twice. And I heard the gunshots. He shot about 5 times, pulled it. It had a 5-round magazine. He emptied the magazine, and I heard the shots, and I had my hand, I grabbed his arm, and I grabbed the gun and took it away from him, and I looked down, and there's blood everywhere, and I said, he shot, and I said to my partner, I was with another guy, I said, he shot himself, because I didn't feel anything, and he had actually shot me. He shot my ankle, and he shot, like, literally my ass, like literally right next to my hole. It's very, not very, not a very, it's kind of a shameful thing, but it's true. And so there was blood everywhere, and it was me that was bleeding. And so my partner took care of the guy, and we'll just leave that at that. And so we didn't know what to do, because I'm shot. And I didn't hurt, well, nothing, there was no pain at all. And they took me to a veterinarian's office. we had a veterinarian that we worked with who was dirty, and he put me in the radio, the radiographia, that's Spanish, X-ray machine, and literally he dug the bullet out of my ankle there in the shop, and cut it open and put screws in it. And I want to tell you something. When they put screws in your bone and you're awake, they can numb the meat. And I'm watching all this, and it doesn't hurt. And he told me, he said, I'm about to drill a hole in your bone, and it's going to fucking hurt, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Man, when they put screws in my bone, I thought I had a hard time holding my shit together. I mean, it was bad. And he literally just used like an old Makita cordless drill. It's like not some special surgical tool, just like I'm sure it was clean and sterilized and everything, but it was like weird to watch him. Anyway, and so this vet put screws in my leg and told me, he said, there's a bullet lodged behind your spine, and it didn't hit any vital organs, and it doesn't look like it's hit any of your intestines. We won't know, but if it had hit one of your intestines, you'd already know it. You'd be screaming in pain and dying. So I'm just going to leave it there, because if I try to take it out, you'll be in a wheelchair. He said, try not to walk or do anything for like 4 weeks. Go lay in the bed for like 4 weeks. So I went and I laid in the bed, and I woke up the next morning and I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't feel them. You could stick a needle in my leg and I couldn't feel. I could move them, but I couldn't feel it. And I called him, and he said, just the only thing you can do is wait and hope. He said, let's hope that nothing happens, because there's nothing we can do about it. And if you go to the doctor, there's nothing they can do about it either, and they're going to call the police because it's a bullet wound. So I laid in the bed for 4 weeks and got up, and everything was okay. I had a lot of back problems between my L5 and L4 vertebrae. The bullet herniated a disc, and for years I had problems. But it finally, I'm 100%. I can touch the floor. I can touch the floor. I can bend over and touch my toes, touch the floor even. In between my feet, and so I'm fairly, not like super flexible or anything, but I'm flexible as a normal man. So everything's okay. But that was the story about that.
How many times have you had guns pulled on you?
Gunplay is a funny thing. Gunplay is a funny thing, actually, because it doesn't scare me to have a gun pointed at me. It's frightening in the fact that somebody might accidentally shoot you, might pull the trigger on accident because people are stupid. But if somebody pulls a gun on you and points a gun on you and doesn't shoot at you, there's a 98% chance that they're not going to shoot you. Well, I never pulled a gun and pointed it at anybody, like, in anything more than a threat. So if somebody pulls a gun on you and they stick a gun in your face, that's just a threat. And threats don't bother me, because like when people are threatening you, it means that they're impotent. When somebody starts screaming, I'm going to kill you, like that, you should smile about that, because that means they're completely impotent. And if someone pulls a gun on you and points it at you, like the dangerous part is that they might accidentally trip and fall and pull the trigger, or put too much pressure on the trigger and pull it on accident. But them actually shooting you, very little, because I never pulled a gun on anybody that I didn't just shoot immediately. If you're going to use a firearm, you use it, but like pointing it around is a chicken shit thing to do. So when people pull guns, I've had that happen a million times. It always makes me laugh, because there's very little chance you're going to get shot when somebody's pointing a gun at you. Because if somebody is going to do something violent to you, they just do it. And that pointing a gun at someone is a real chicken thing to do, because like I just walk over and take that away from you, because you're not going to do anything. Nobody that's pointing a gun at you and saying and screaming it is ever going to shoot you. That's not going to happen. Very, very, very small chance of it. Most people, like I say, every time I ever used a firearm, it was pulled and used immediately, not some great speech before it. If they start giving you a big speech, you should just relax, because everything's going to be okay. So gunplay is a strange thing. I've had guns pulled on me many times. You have to respect it, right? It's not like you're going to attack the guy because he might shoot at you to defend himself. Then if you give him like a lot of reason, maybe he shoot you. But if somebody pulls a gun on me, I just sit and listen and yeah, okay, sure, and make a mental note, take care of this idiot later, that sort of thing. And so I think I probably had guns pulled on me more times than I can remember. I don't know, maybe. In the collection, when I was doing collections, it happens a lot. And then you just have to wait and let them retreat, because normally they pull a gun on you to retreat, to get away. So they pull a gun on you and then they're trying to get away from you. You just let them go and then catch them later.